From a distance, a lone figure watches a small party of heroes. An adventuring party looks on in shock, finding the scene unbelievable. In a tavern, a drunkard excitedly tells a wild, unbelievable story. It's a tale of a solo party taking on a top difficulty raid boss. The hero and his 6 companions stand triumphant over the slain dragon. A nervous, pudgy man with glasses sweats, looking completely out of place. The hero playfully asks the man if he was properly watching the fight. The crowd shoves him, complaining that he is blocking their view. He scurries away from the celebration, carrying a backpack and a shovel. He glances back over his shoulder with a look of quiet resolve. A reporter asks the hero how he discovered the boss's critical weakness. The hero credits a member named Tenma, but he is no longer there. Onlookers wonder where he went, offering to go and get him back. The press decides to move on, preparing to upload their footage. A party member finally spots him in the crowd, calling out to Tenma. The hero finds Tenma and asks what's wrong as he examines his find. Tenma reveals a hidden elixir, suggesting they all toast to their victory. In a messy apartment, a man raises a can to his laptop, saying cheers. His lonely toast is with a cheap can of store-on alcohol. In-game chat praises Tenma's research, admitting they underestimated him. He humbly replies that their victory was due to everyone's combined strength. A friend is glad Tenma won't quit his job to aim for the top. Another friend says he could never say that while still job hunting. The party chat wonders if Tenma is secretly some kind of elite. Tenma's fingers pause over the keyboard as he considers how to reply. He admits he's just a part-timer at a black company, surprising them. A friend happily announces he got a job, thanks to Tenma's advice. Tenma offers a simple, genuine smile and congratulates his friend. He tells his friend to work hard for his sake as well. Cracking a new can, he muses that at least this game is fair. A friend notes Tenma's generation was hit hard by the job recession. He brings the can to his lips, a quiet clinking sound filling the room. He thinks about how this game was once considered impossible for beginners. His hand suddenly spasms, crushing the top of the aluminum can. The world seems to distort as he wonders if it's an earthquake. He realizes with horror that he is the one who has collapsed. Lying on the floor, his eyes are wide with shock as the can rolls away. In the game, his friend notes he isn't responding and gets a bad feeling. His friends wonder if he just fell asleep on the carpet from exhaustion. He awakens on the floor of a sterile, endless white hallway. He looks around frantically, wondering what this strange place is. A sudden noise makes him jump, his body tensing with a sharp gasp. He spots a woman at a desk and wonders who this foreigner could be. The blonde, bespectacled woman turns her head to look directly at him. She states calmly that he has finally arrived. She stands up from her desk with a sharp, businesslike motion. She informs Yamada he died in-game and offers him a bottle of water. He numbly accepts the news, asking if that is really what happened. She notes his surprising lack of shock and unpracticed demeanor. She observes him with a cool, professional gaze, her expression neutral. She explains he is being reincarnated into a world like his game. As an alarm blares, he worries his current body is not up to the task. She shouts over the noise, trying to insist that everything is fine. He looks at her, completely bewildered, asking what she means. She struggles to explain he'll be 14 again after 3 months of training. The idea of a tutorial appeals to his gamer sensibilities. He interrupts, asking if he can learn skills and magic during training. She starts to answer, but the system glitches before she can finish. Overwhelmed, she screams at him to be quiet, as she cannot multitask. He stares at her, a look of concern on his face as she panics. She mutters that this whole system feels like a strange temp agency. He thinks to himself that this woman seems to be having a hard time. Regaining her composure, she announces it's time for his ability assessment. She explains the system of specializations with bonuses and penalties. He confirms that if he chooses no bonus, he receives no penalty. He feels a need to consider this choice carefully, sweating from the stress. As alarms blare again, she apologizes for rushing, feeling incompetent. He feels a sense of empathy, Realizing he can't ignore her struggle, he sighs, thinking that there is nothing that can be done about it now. He declares he wants no corrections, a choice that shocks the woman. He explains a normal setting is better for testing, and she thanks him. She states the training ends at level 10 or after 3 months' time. He asks her to clarify what she means by perceived time. She panics, waving her hands frantically and telling him to wait. Her finger slips, accidentally pressing the button to start the process. She clasps her hands together, apologizing profusely for her mistake. His consciousness fades as her unheard apology is the last thing he sees. His vision dissolves into a grainy static as he loses all sensation. In the darkness, a sliver of light appears as he makes a small sound. He gasps awake, finding himself sitting at a desk in a cozy room. A holographic screen cheerfully welcomes him to the training facility. He reaches out a hesitant finger, touching the intangible screen. He looks at his own hands, now slender and youthful, shaking slightly. He touches his face, feeling the smooth, unblemished skin of a teenager. Standing up, he is shocked by how light his new body feels. He explores the room, finding a leather-bound journal on the desk. He discovers a workshop, fully equipped with a forge and an anvil. Continuing his tour, he finds the house is surprisingly spacious. He is amazed to find a large library with a spiral staircase. He enters the bedroom and spots a full-length mirror by the bed. He rushes toward the mirror, eager to finally see his new appearance. His eyes widen in utter disbelief at the reflection staring back. He points at his own young face, exclaiming that he's a kid again. The charming tutorial house is revealed, sitting alone on a green island. He sits on the bed, already engrossed in a book, ready to begin. With a pen and notebook, he starts to meticulously plan his training. He writes down his new name, Tenma, resolving to record everything. A map shows the island is 100 kilometers wide, with a dungeon inside. From the window, he observes his new world with an analytical eye. Seeing birds fly by, he wonders if they're monsters he can eat. With his cheeks puffed out, Tenma savors a truly delicious meal. He learns he receives a 3,000 yen daily stipend for food. He decides to stick with easy meals, still wary of eating monsters. He opens a drawer and finds it packed with complimentary supplies. He wonders if he is expected to use this entire amount daily. He is shocked to discover an ornate, high-grade elixir among the items. He fondly recalls toasting his party's victory with this very same potion. Suddenly, his eyes widen as a brilliant, game-breaking idea strikes him. He theorizes he can exploit the system for a more efficient run. With a tap, he begins to test his newfound hypothesis. His eyes go wide with excitement as he stares at the monitor. He has gained 2 bonus skills, Item Box and Appraisal. He immediately grabs his notebook, ready to strategize. With a determined grin, he declares that the verification process has begun. In the afterlife, Anna nervously walks toward the executive boardroom. She frets, suspecting one of her reincarnators has caused trouble again. Her boss, Hagen, confirms her fears are correct. She panics, wondering which of her past assignments is the culprit. Hagen explains all 3 of her recent candidates have abandoned their duties. The devastating news sends Anna collapsing to her knees in shock. As she bows her head, Hagen calmly calls out her name. He states that for this to happen with all of them, there must be a reason. Anna accepts full responsibility, certain she is about to be fired. She already worries about filing for unemployment benefits tomorrow. She knows the company won't just let anyone take the fall. Hagen asks if she truly understands the meaning of responsibility. Confused, she stammers that it is the duty of the person in charge. He tells her she's missed the point and can't take responsibility yet. He assumes responsibility himself and asks about Tenma's compressed training. A system graphic reveals the time dilation. 1 hour equals 1 year. For every hour in the office, a full year passes for Tenma. In his world, Tenma smiles, having finished organizing his potions. He explains his strategy of using the item box to stockpile supplies. He knows his hoard will vanish when training ends, but it is useful now. He enters a vast indoor training area, awed by its scale. He picks up a baseball, testing its familiar weight in his hands. His pitch is comically weak, landing just a few feet away. He scratches his head, admitting it's about what he expected. Looking at his stats, he knows he needs a plan to increase them. He opens his notebook, determined to raise his stats before leveling up. A diagram shows his dilemma: fixed stat gains versus percentage-based gains. The problem, he realizes, is that he doesn't know how to do it. He remembers a mechanic from his old game for increasing max MP. With a snap of his book, he decides it is worth a try. He walks purposefully to the center of the training floor. Standing still, he closes his eyes and begins to concentrate deeply. His eyes snap open, filled with intense, magical focus. He casts time magic, a digital clock appearing on his palm. He jots down his notes, recording the spell's 5 MP cost. With one experiment complete, he raises a finger to begin the next. He casts water magic, his MP dropping to 35. He follows with fire magic, his MP now at 30. Next is wind magic, bringing his MP down to 25. He stomps, casting dig magic, and his MP falls to 15. He stumbles back, suddenly feeling lightheaded and weak. His vision blurs as a powerful wave of vertigo washes over him. Shaking it off, he pushes himself to cast one more spell, light magic. His legs give out from under him with a sharp grunt. He collapses, panting, unable to stand as his MP hits 10. A wave of nausea hits him. This must be MP depletion sickness. He realizes the exhaustion is real, but he must push his limits. With his last ounce of strength, he casts sleep magic. His magic power is completely drained, hitting 0. He finally collapses onto the floor, utterly spent from the effort. Sometime later, his consciousness slowly returns. He jolts awake, frantically wondering what his MP is. He finds his MP has recovered to 30 and begins taking notes. Checking the clock, he calculates his recovery rate at 1 MP per minute. He realizes he has 20 minutes until he's fully recovered. He steps outside for a break, smiling as he sees the ocean. He sits on a large stone at the edge of the scenic cliff. He takes out 2 rice balls he ordered from the monitor. He carefully peels the plastic wrapper from his simple meal. As he eats, he peacefully watches the leaves drift on the wind. He thinks to himself that being here might not be so bad. He quickly snaps out of his reverie, shouting that training must resume. A montage shows his grueling routine, collapsing from MP depletion. He runs outside to recover his strength and clear his head. He studies frantically until he is once again completely drained. He reads calmly in the library while his mana slowly returns. The cycle repeats endlessly as days turn into weeks, then months. Stumbling, he notes the exhaustion is now easier to bear. He has adapted. With a flick of his hand, he summons his status screen. He stares in disbelief. His max MP has increased to 51. He did it. He stomps his foot, declaring his verification a resounding success. He throws himself to the floor, rolling around in pure, unadulterated joy. Lying on his back, he laughs, overcome with relief and excitement. He grabs his face, filled with a new, powerful sense of resolve. As night falls, he vows to conquer the next 3 months of training. In the afterlife, Hagen watches Anna leave, the first matter concluded. Anna stops in the hallway, a worrying thought suddenly occurring to her. She asks if Hagen set a timer, but he just tells her to follow him. Hagen notes her complete dedication, while Anna nervously follows his lead. An empty energy drink clatters to the floor. Exhausted, Anna chugs another can, desperate for a caffeine boost. A close-up shows her gulping down the sugary liquid. She lets out a sigh of relief as the drink takes effect. She wonders why her boss is helping her with her reincarnated troubles. Nearby, Hagen reviews documents, seemingly oblivious to her stare. She worries that he is secretly planning to use her for some nefarious purpose. Anna is startled to see her formidable boss, Hagen, smoking outside. He casually beckons her over with a simple flick of his hand. She pauses at a vending machine, her mind heavy with worry. Hagen approaches, offering her a snack and telling her to eat. She accepts the small box with a quiet, grateful thank you. Gathering her resolve, she finally addresses him as Section Chief Hagen. She asks him to explain the true meaning of responsibility he spoke of. Responsibility, he declares, is simply the shadow cast by power. He recalls how she had questioned the system's abstract justice. She remembers persistently asking why they wouldn't just help Tenma. Hagen admits he had dismissed her concerns as nonsense at the time. He asks if she had the authority to change things. She did not. Her predecessor, he notes, would have just complained about the extra work. There can be no responsibility without authority, a truth many ignore. He will take responsibility this time, so she can do better work. Anna promises to think ahead for the next time something similar happens. Hagen gives a slight nod, a sign of his approval. Before the cityscape, he tells her she is more capable than she thinks. He will use the upcoming review to push for new mechanisms. He assures a surprised Anna that he will handle the difficult parts. He then asks for an update on the reincarnator, Tenma. He recalls that one of their hours is an entire month for Tenma. In the hallway, Anna freezes, realizing something is terribly wrong. Hagen, sensing an issue, asks for Tenma's interview records. He begins to read through the file with a thoughtful expression. His eyes widen as a crucial detail finally clicks into place. Meanwhile, Tenma finishes his journal entry for the 28th day. He notes that this isolated life is almost over, his notebook worn. As he eats, a sudden, important thought strikes him. He must use his daily food allowance, since he is still level 1. He knows that all these items will disappear once his training ends. A container of potato salad materializes with a soft pop. He decides this meal is the best use of his 3,000 yen budget. He has created many meal combinations to keep from getting bored. He finishes his food with a quiet prayer of thanks. Lying down, he remembers all provided items reset at midnight. He yawns, realizing he's never once used the provided elixirs. With his routine complete, he falls into a deep sleep. He wakes with a jolt, panicked that he forgot to store his journal. His days are monotonous, repeating cycle of training and survival. The silence of the island is both a comfort and a curse. Back in the office, Hagen tells Anna he's reviewed Tenma's logs. Anna nervously nibbles on the snack her boss gave her. She recalls how meek and unreliable Tenma seemed during his interview. Hagen's expression is grim as he considers the situation. He states that the current training system has a major, unseen flaw. He explains that 3 months of total isolation is the limit for anyone. Anna agrees, noting that most reincarnators are done within 3 months. She worries that having no one to talk to is an impossibly harsh trial. Hagen checks his watch, noting that the time has come. He announces it is time for the second half, asking about her worried face. The weight of his words about responsibility hangs heavy on her. Anna is suddenly struck by the feeling she'd forgotten something crucial. The date stamp reads, Month 1, Day 29, 8:12 a.m. Tenma cheerfully greets the dolphin AI on his monitor, Shachikun. He steps out of the quaint tutorial house into the morning sun. Outside, he begins his day with a series of familiar stretches. A small, white bird chirping on a branch catches his eye. He smiles brightly and wishes the little bird a good morning. He continues his walk, greeting the flowers along the path. He bends down and picks up a small, smooth stone. He muses that it's a good stone, part of his unseen routine. He decides that 200 stones will be enough for today's training. A large rock face near a tree serves as his practice range. A 9-square grid is crudely carved into the rock surface. With intense focus, he holds a stone, preparing to throw. He unleashes a powerful, practiced throw toward the target. He pulls another stone from his inventory, his movements fluid. His 10th and 50th throws strike the target with perfect accuracy. He continues his count, shouting as he reaches 150. Sweat drips from his brow as he prepares for the final throw. His 200 stone hits the mark, completing the set. The physical portion of his training is now complete. He sits atop a high rock, preparing for the next phase. He closes his eyes, focusing his mind to gather magical energy. The power surges around him, startling the birds in the trees. The birds take flight, disturbed by the concentration of magic. Exhausted, he collapses, knowing this core skill is essential. This slow accumulation of power is more important than flashy moves. Later, he enjoys a simple lunch of sandwiches and coffee. A large feather drifts down from the sky as he eats. He catches the feather, a perfect tool for his studies. He studies an encyclopedia, learning about the world's creatures. The sun sets on another day of solitary, relentless training. The next morning, he begins his routine anew, gathering stones. He realizes the stones are in the exact same positions as yesterday. A chill runs down his spine at the world's unnatural consistency. He picks up a stone, recognizing it from the day before. Night falls on the lonely house under a sky full of stars. He pulls out a knife and wood, preparing to fight the loneliness. He carves small figures, a drawing of his old friends on the wall. The crude drawing shows the 6 members of the Reckless Heroes party. He works late into the night, the sound of carving filling the silence. Wood shavings litter the floor, a testament to his lonely work. He squeezes toothpaste onto his brush, his mind elsewhere. He muses that tomorrow will mark a full month in this place. The cute dolphin icon on the monitor offers no real comfort. He reflects on his training, having acquired skills to endure hardship. He knows that despite his progress, there is still so much to do. He sighs, realizing he still has 60 more long days to go. A lone toothbrush sits in a glass, a symbol of Tenma's solitary existence. He sits on his bed, grateful for the endless opportunities to test his theories. He speaks to a lump of clay, asking if it agrees with his thoughts. He gently pats his new cat-like clay friend, wishing it a good night. The next morning, Tenma jolts awake, a sense of dread washing over him. He tears his room apart, crying out that his clay friend, Doyle, is gone. His face hardens as the grim reality of the daily reset sinks in. He steps outside into the unchanging world, feeling the weight of his imprisonment. He sighs, realizing this place is a subtle kind of hell. He holds a stone, wishing for beasts or even just people to appear. In the afterlife, a boardroom of animal-headed executives listens intently. Anna stands before them, concluding her report on improving the flawed system. One executive praises her, calling her summary of the issues an excellent report. The entire strange council is captivated by her sharp analysis. Hagen tells her that overlooking these systemic flaws was the real problem. Hagen realizes the management was completely unaware of the issues until her report. He dryly muses that the executives must be too busy for such things. Wiping sweat from his brow, Hagen feels the pressure of their incompetence. Anna looks down, weary from the endless, stressful meeting. She wonders to herself why powerful people seem to enjoy meetings so much. Hagen impatiently glances at his watch as the meeting continues to drag on. Anna's thoughts drift to Tenma, worrying if he is eating and drinking properly. Over a nighttime cityscape, her stomach growls loudly. The scene fades to black. Under a starry sky, the lonely tutorial house sits on its isolated island. A can of Storon sits next to a half-eaten meal, a small celebration. Tenma cheers, believing his long training life is finally over. He reflects that his 3 months of skill grinding are what earned him this meal. A delicious-looking pile of fried horo-horo bird legs awaits him. He happily eats, proud that his throwing skill allowed him to catch the birds. But a new thought gives him a moment of pause. Realizing this may be his last taste of home, he decides to savor it. He watches the clock, noting that it is almost time for his reincarnation. As the final countdown begins from 5, he stands waiting in the middle of the room. The clock ticks down, the number 3 flashing on screen. The little dolphin icon seems to watch as the count reaches 2. With his heart pounding, Tenma braces for the final second. Midnight strikes. He stands in the silent room, completely unchanged. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as he wonders why he wasn't reincarnated. He walks slowly toward the monitor, searching for an answer. He leans in, peering at the screen in utter confusion. The AI confirms that, yes, 3 months have indeed passed. He tries to laugh it off, hoping the transfer will happen after he sleeps. Empty cans litter the floor, evidence of his choice to delay leveling up. He had prioritized his skills to maximize the potential of this unique environment. This place was perfect for the repetitive training needed to increase his proficiency. He felt a quiet satisfaction with the results of his hard work. Drifting into a deep sleep, he collapses on the floor, exhausted but content. The door to his consciousness seems to swing shut. The world fades into darkness. He groans as he wakes up the next morning. He rubs the sleep from his eyes, still groggy. He sits up in a panic, realizing he still hasn't been transferred. He tries to remember what went wrong as a butterfly flits past his window. A bead of sweat forms as a dreadful possibility occurs to him. He recalls Anna's words. It wasn't 3 months or level 10, but end. But he grimaces, the crushing weight of his critical misunderstanding hitting him. But his despair quickly transforms into a brilliant, sparkling excitement. He realizes he can now train alchemy or magic without worrying about leveling up. 6 months have now passed in his solitary training facility. Fresh from a bath, he steps onto the tiled floor. His body now lean and defined, he remarks how good the bath felt. A real bath, he muses, is far better than anything clear magic can provide. He towels his hair dry, looking out at the unchanging landscape. 3 more months have passed, yet there is still no sign of his reincarnation. Sitting down to study, he points at the monitor, calling out to it. His only worry, the constant supply of food, has thankfully continued. He taps the screen, confused by a sudden change in the AI. In his eye, the reflection of the dolphin icon is now noticeably larger. The AI has become a massive orca, asking how it can be of service. It confirms that this expanded functionality was always part of its design after 90 days. Tenma is utterly shocked by this sudden revelation. He is left speechless by the AI's calm explanation. He stares at the wall, a new, troubling suspicion forming in his mind. The AI calmly explains that it cannot be erased. From outside the house, he calls out to the AI, Shachi-kun. He demands to know why he hasn't been reincarnated. The AI asks to be called Gale. Gale explains that his training should have ended 3 months ago. It tells a frustrated Tenma to calm down, as the reason for the delay is unknown. Tenma is annoyed that Gale is suddenly so talkative after its long silence. Gale lets out a small, smug laugh in response. It explains that its functions were merely sealed and would have been lonely otherwise. Tenma stands by the door, a sudden realization dawning on him. He touches the door, wondering who could have created such a flawed system. He pulls his hand back in shock. He exclaims that the door feels completely flat, like a 2D plane. He asks Gale if this is a bug in the training system. Gale confirms the bug is far more serious than any expected error. Gale offers a plan to exploit the daily system reset to their advantage. Standing in a hallway, Tenma prepares to test the limits of his reality. He focuses his power, imbuing his sword with magical energy. He raises the glowing blade, admitting he has some reservations about this plan. His eyes narrow with intense, focused determination. The first strike cracks the wall, shattering the plaster. The second blow sends debris flying as the structure begins to fail. The entire house shudders from the force of the third and final blow. He stands in a gaping hole, revealing a void of beeping digital error messages. He panics, frantically trying to close the flood of warning pop-ups. He lets out a sigh, the immediate danger having passed. He looks at the hole in reality, finally understanding the nature of his prison. Tenma surveyed the damage, relieved his room was still intact for now. He worried about future bugs, knowing he was lucky this time. He feared that next time, the entire room might just disappear. A book on magic offered a potential solution to his problem. He decided to move his most important possessions as a precaution. The test of his new plan would have to wait for now. He created a grotesque creature from spare parts as a test subject. Anna arrived at the office, too tired to notice a strange creature. She slumped into her chair, exhausted from a long day of meetings. A sudden realization caused her to break out in a cold sweat. A critical alert flashed on her screen, a catastrophic system failure. She realized with horror that her own mistake was the cause. Her finger hovered over the button for a forced reincarnation. A notification for a salary deduction was reflected in her glasses. Her phone rang, the cheerful chime breaking the tense silence. She answered the call, her face a mask of panicked surprise. Her boss, Hagen, listened calmly while sipping from his favorite mug. He deduced that she had missed one alert but caught the other. He spoke to her, his voice coming through the phone's receiver. He thanked her for her honesty, much to her surprise. She could only respond with a confused, questioning sound. Hagen decided they must bring Tenma back and apologize immediately. He would handle the management side of things himself. He worried deeply about Tenma's mental state after 15 years alone. On the island, 6 months, decades for Tenma, had passed. Tenma screamed into the void, having finally reached his limit. He complained to Gale about being trapped for half a year. He spoke to his only friend, the AI he had named Gale. He promised that once he was free, Gale would be free too. He admitted that Gale was right, feeling a pang of guilt. He had a plan to max out all of his skill proficiencies. He would focus on leveling up to finally end their confinement. He proudly asked Gale what it thought of his grand plan. Gale tearfully told him he was a good person, but it was hopeless. The AI then decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. It told Tenma to open his eyes to see the world's reality. Tenma found himself in a lush, vibrant forest within his room. He wondered if it was a dream, but Gale explained it was real. Gale had used a spell called Dimension Area to create the space. The AI was amazed Tenma could use such advanced spatial magic. Tenma hadn't checked his stats, focusing only on leveling up. Gale was stunned, having never seen a human with such proficiency. They had trained together every day in a world that always reset. Tenma had spent countless hours studying and preparing for this. He had stared out at the unchanging world, waiting for an escape. He even learned to cook, making the most of his strange prison. The text revealed that 12 years had passed since his death. He gently touched the small wooden figures of his old party. Gale explained the pocket dimension was a bug, a safe space. Tenma remembered the strange bug that had started all. He laughed, recalling the flustered operator who sent him here. Gale corrected him, revealing the goddess Terra created this world. Tenma was shocked to learn a goddess was behind his predicament. He realized she must have included some hidden reincarnation conditions. Gale suggested the condition might be to defeat the dungeon's boss. Tenma's eyes widened, a new, daunting challenge before him. He accepted the quest, knowing he had all the time he needed. He stood at the entrance to the dungeon, ready for the trial. He fought his way through hordes of goblins and other monsters. He thought of his old friends, the camaraderie he deeply missed. He explored the deepest, most dangerous parts of the dungeon. He was chased by powerful beasts, his survival skills honed. He found treasures, his adventurer instincts taking over. He meticulously mapped every floor, leaving nothing to chance. 3 long years passed since he began his dungeon conquest. He finally stood before the massive doors of the final boss. The battle against the ancient dragon was about to begin. 14 hours into the grueling fight, he was still standing. He leaned on his sword, exhausted but refusing to give up. He knew this was an impossible solo mission, but he had to try. He told himself that retreating was the only logical choice. But the thought of his 15 years of effort being wasted was unbearable. He caught himself, shaking off the despair that threatened to consume him. He checked his inventory, finding only one precious elixir left. The dragon spoke a line of dialogue he had never heard before. He realized this might be his only chance to win. He threw a bent sword, a desperate, seemingly foolish feint. He watched the dragon's reaction, his eyes sharp and focused. The beast mocked his pathetic attempt, preparing to finish him. The bent sword flew through the air, a useless piece of metal. The dragon was utterly baffled by the strange, bent projectile. Tenma seized the moment of confusion, screaming, "Now!" The dragon's eyes widened in shock as Tenma lunged forward. He drove his real sword deep into the beast's skull. The dragon could only utter a final, gurgling cry of disbelief. Its massive body crashed to the ground, the battle finally over. Tenma let out a raw, triumphant scream, his voice echoing. His legs gave out, and he collapsed, utterly spent. He hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind out of him. He groaned, clutching a glowing item that had dropped from a boss. He breathed a sigh of relief, admitting it was a close call. He logged his time, a new record of 15 hours. He pleaded to the heavens, hoping this time he would be free. His plea was finally being heard, but not in the way he expected. In the afterlife, an executive reviewed the details of his case. Hagen stood before his superior, Managing Director Hayes. Hayes dismissed his concerns, calling the request to recall Tenma foolish. Hagen addressed his superior, his expression grim and determined. He warned that reincarnating Tenma, as he was, could be a disaster. Hayes waved him off, annoyed by his subordinate's persistence. A pig-faced executive, Hayes sneers, stating he has no time for pleasantries. He complains to Section Chief Hagen about the burden of incompetent subordinates. Hayes leans back in his chair, affectionately petting a strange, shadowy creature. He decides to force the reincarnation, as the client is unaware of their mistake. The shadowy creature yelps, sensing its master's cruel intent. Hagen begins to calmly counter the managing director's unethical proposal. He explains that building long-term trust is more profitable than short-term deception. Hayes lets out a massive, dismissive yawn, completely bored by Hagen's principles. Hagen anticipated this reaction, knowing his superior was a sanctimonious man. Hayes gloats, revealing he sent the forced reincarnation order just before the deadline. Hagen offers a false smile, complimenting his boss on his swift, decisive action. But behind his back, Hagen's hand trembles, crushing the file he holds. Hayes complains that his incompetent underling can't even clean up his own mess. From the doorway, Anna watches the tense exchange, sweating with anxiety. Tenma suddenly finds himself in a field, shouting in confusion about his location. He stomps his foot, feeling the solid, real ground beneath his new boots. Standing in the pouring rain, he remains completely bewildered by his surroundings. He holds out his gloved hand, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of real raindrops. He realizes this is actual water, not a simulation like he was used to. It dawns on him that it never, ever rained in the artificial training space. Tears well in his eyes as the profound reality of his situation sinks in. He sees real flowers and grass, drenched in the downpour for the first time. The overwhelming sensory input of this new world is a deep, emotional shock. In the distance, a real mountain peak pierces the rainy sky, a majestic sight. He looks around at the vast, living world, finally understanding what has happened. He cries out in cathartic release, overwhelmed with joy that he's finally been reincarnated. The heavy rain continues to fall, cleansing him of decades of sterile solitude. He finds shelter from the storm, a lone figure beneath the branches of a tree. With determined hands, he wrings the cold rainwater from his soaked tunic. Shirtless, he hangs his trousers on a branch to dry in the damp air. He notes his clothes are brand new, but his possessions are extremely limited. Checking his status, he confirms with a sigh that his item box is now empty. However, his character stats are impossibly high, a testament to his long training. He laughs in disbelief at his own power, speaking his friend Gale's name aloud. He then remembers with a pang of sadness that his friend is no longer with him. He wishes Gale well, hoping his friend is happy now that it has been released. A faint, whimpering sound from the grass suddenly puts him on high alert. He spots something collapsed in the tall weeds, his eyes wide with surprise. Drawing his knife, he cautiously approaches the source of the strange sound. He parts the blades of grass, his expression one of pure shock at his discovery. He shouts in alarm, having found a small, fox-eared girl lying unconscious. His first instinct is to help the child, marveling at her beast-like features. He is completely baffled by the situation, wondering what could have possibly happened. His face becomes grim as he assesses the small girl's dire condition. She lies still, her hand weakly clenched, her face etched with pain. He discovers the cause of her plight, a cruel bear trap on her leg. From above, he is a solitary figure kneeling beside the vulnerable child. He decides to use his water magic to carefully clean the dirty wound. He worries about treating someone else, noting how frighteningly thin her leg is. Holding her foot gently, he wishes he had an elixir to heal her instantly. As if in response to his care, the rain stops and the sun appears. He wipes the sweat from his brow, relieved as the girl begins to stir. Her eyes flutter open, her gaze hazy as she slowly returns to consciousness. She sits up, her leg now bandaged, and looks around with a wary expression. Her ears twitch as she frantically scans her surroundings, trying to get her bearings. Tenma tries to introduce himself, but his social awkwardness makes him stammer nervously. The girl claims to not know her name or home, her suspicion of him clear. He panics internally, realizing how long it's been since he's spoken to anyone. He despairs at his poor communication skills, while the girl watches him cautiously. He finds himself wondering what his logical friend, Gale, would do in this situation. He analyzes her simple clothes, deducing she lives in a small, pioneer village. He imagines her being taught by her parents to be wary of strange outsiders. He is touched by her caution, realizing she is trying to protect her home. He wonders if her vague directions are a test of his character. He calls out to her, and her pointed fox ear twitches in his direction. He cheerfully announces he has urgent business and bids her a safe farewell. The girl watches as he turns and runs off into the nearby woods. He doesn't go far, instead finding a tall tree to use as a vantage point. Perched high on a branch, he activates a magical map to track her movements. His map confirms his theory. Her icon has merged with another group nearby. He notes that his advanced skills allow him to map a 5-kilometer radius. He smiles, deducing that her family or friend have found her and are going home. On his map, he sees the small icons representing the children moving together. From a distance, he watches a tender reunion as two beastkin children embrace. An older beastkin girl gives the small child a piggyback ride through the forest. Tenma continues to watch them, his expression thoughtful as he tracks their path. He notices on the map that the group is not taking a direct route. Their icons continue to weave and circle, taking a deliberately confusing path. He briefly wonders if they are lost again, but quickly dismisses the thought. He realizes they're taking a detour to hide their village from him. Looking over the landscape, he accepts that this world has real consequences. He laments that he must have made a terrible first impression on them. He recalls how first impressions were always crucial, even in his old online games. He muses that in this new world, that first meeting is 90% of everything. He gazes at the distant settlement, resolving to plan his next move carefully. To pass the time, he begins to practice, making a rustling sound as he carves wood. With a deft flick of his knife, he carves a perfect wooden flower. Now cloaked and hooded, he observes the village from his newly built treehouse. He notes that the monsters in this forest are no threat to his current level. More importantly, he hides in the tall grass, his attention focused elsewhere. He watches two villagers pass by, their casual conversation providing valuable intel. He overhears them discussing plans for new farmland and their isolation from others. He sees the village's wooden palisade, confirming it's a settlement wary of strangers. He believes that if he can just make a good first impression, everything will be fine. To prepare, he finds a large, solitary rock to practice on. He awkwardly practices his greeting on the stone, trying to seem non-threatening. At night, he rests in the small but sturdy treehouse he built for himself. He continues to bide his time, carving intricate designs into the wooden walls. He marks the passing days with notches, patiently waiting for the right moment. He also hones his skills, throwing sharpened stones with lethal speed and precision. The sun beat down as Tenma paused his work, wiping sweat from his brow. He proudly held up his catch, a plump bird secured with a well-aimed stone. Foraging for roots, he dug into the rich earth at the base of a tree. Later, he roasted the bird over a crackling fire, a simple but satisfying meal. His days were spent meticulously mapping the area, preparing for his first contact. In the quiet moments, he carved a small wooden cat to combat the loneliness. He even tried sculpting a friend from stone, a silent, unmoving companion. "Look what I made," he seemed to say, sharing his creation with the statue. His reconnaissance began, a hooded figure observing the village from the shadows. He watched intently, a flicker of concern on his face as he analyzed everything. He saw two young foxkin, one playfully leaping from the high wooden palisade. She ran with youthful energy, her training a daily ritual of sneaking out. He mused that the girl had snuck out again for her daily training session. From his hiding spot, he studied the village's only entrance, the main gate. He noted there were 4 guards, with the strongest being a stern wolfman. The young wolf beast man, Manga, seemed to be the one in charge here. A portly, pig-faced man appeared, asking if the guard was daydreaming of adventure. The guard, Manga, was clearly annoyed, warned not to cross the elder's son. The village held about 120 people, an even mix of humans and beastkin. Most were self-sufficient, with merchants only visiting from town occasionally. The water source was a deep well, requiring great effort to draw from. The village chief was a human elder who seemed quite formidable. Timma's attention was caught by a sound. It was a young fox girl training. He thought it was amazing she was practicing her sword swings all alone. Ah, she stopped, he thought to himself, a small smile on his face. Then she scrambled back over the wall, exclaiming that her training was over. She worried that if he didn't leave soon, he would get into trouble. He wished interpersonal skills could be improved with numbers, like in a game. He sighed, looking out at the vast, unfamiliar landscape of his new world. In the afterlife, Anna stretched wearily at her desk, tired from her work. Her boss, Section Chief Hagen, appeared at her door, calling her name. He thoughtfully brought her coffee, asking if she preferred it with milk. She accepted gratefully, taking a quiet moment to sip the warm drink. Suddenly, he crushed a newspaper, asking if she'd heard from a certain secretary. His face contorted with controlled rage, veins bulging on his forehead. Startled, she could only watch as he muttered the name of Executive Hayes. He then downed his own coffee in a single, furious gulp. The empty cup was slammed down on the table with a sharp crack. Composing himself, he said Hayes would soon have to take responsibility for his actions. Anna, completely flustered, struggled to follow the confusing conversation. She reported that there had been no complaints about Tenma from his new world. Hagen worried that Tenma's stats were too high, but trusted his cautious nature. He considered the situation, stroking his chin in deep thought. In Tenma's case, Hagen mused, his extreme caution was the real concern. Back in the new world, Tenma prepared himself for the task ahead. He had observed his opponent carefully. Now it was time for action. He checked his hand-drawn map, noting he was only a few hundred meters away. He recalled his friend, asking how he got so good at appraisal skills. He remembered explaining his method, endless trial and error, observing and recording. His friend had been inspired, and now Tenma channeled that same determination. "Everyone, watch over me," he whispered to his memories. "I'm going to do this." Inside the gate, the wolfman Manga suddenly sensed his approach. From the watchtower, another guard called out, telling the boy to wait there. The sudden shout startled him, his carefully laid plans momentarily forgotten. A human, he was really talking to a person for the first time in ages. Ranga's face was a mask of utter confusion at the boy's strange reaction. The guard demanded to know why the boy was suddenly crying his eyes out. Ranga ordered him to drop his weapon and step back 5 paces. Tenma, overwhelmed, could only comply with the guard's firm commands. Ranga examined his things, asking if he had any other weapons on him. Tenma explained he had a knife in his bag, which Ranga took for inspection. The other guard jeered, telling Ranga not to get soft and sentimental. Ranga explained it was village rules. They had to confiscate his weapon and pack. He thought it was good they had similar personalities, then remembered his true age. When asked, he corrected himself, stating he was 14 years old. Ranga gave him a rough pat, telling the skinny kid he needed to eat more. The other guard conceded that Ranga and the boy weren't bad people. Tenma was relieved, thinking his first impression wasn't as bad as he feared. Just then, a large figure blocked their path, holding a bottle of wine. It was Eugerin, the elder's son, with an elegantly dressed woman on his arm. The other guard told Eugerin he wasn't supposed to be on duty today. Eugerin sneered, saying he was checking to see if they were slacking off. He swaggered forward, his heavy boots kicking up dust on the path. He got right in Tenma's face, demanding to know what the runt wanted. This is bad, Tenma thought, his mind going blank despite all his practice. He mocked Tenma's stammered explanation of wanting to become independent. Eugerin scoffed, saying it was fine, but held Tenma in a rough grip. A cruel, leering smile spread across his pig-like face. He called it a sickness that young people get, wanting to be adventurers. As a result, he continued, they just end up getting lost and crying. He said Ranga and Misha were already enough of a burden on the village. Ranga trembled with suppressed rage, gritting his teeth at the insult. Eugerin declared Tenma could stay a few days before being sent to Ronda. The other guard protested, saying Eugerin couldn't decide that without the chief. Eugerin declared that his words were the same as his father's words. He told Ranga to look after the brat, adding one more burden to his plate. With that, he tossed his empty bottle aside and swaggered away from them. The 3 of them could only watch as the gate closed behind him. Ranga apologized for the unpleasantness, noting the village had many good people. Tenma thanked him, overwhelmed to be among so many people, no longer alone. He was so moved he could barely speak, simply saying they had arrived. Ranga pointed to his house, offering the barn for Tenma to sleep in. Tenma asked about leaving in a few days, but Ranga suggested another plan. He advised waiting for the merchant, so Tenma wouldn't get lost traveling alone. Ranga offered him some hay to sleep on and said he'd bring a sheet. Suddenly, the fox girl Misha ran up, shouting for her adoptive brother, Ranga. Ranga asked what was wrong, as Tenma recognized her from her training. Misha explained that May's fever had gotten worse. My daughter is sick, Ranga yelled, telling Tenma to wait there before rushing off. Tenma was left sitting alone in the quiet, hay-filled barn, waiting. Alone in the barn's quiet shadows, Tenma sits, lost in his thoughts. He notices a pair of tiny sandals, musing that they belong to the little girl. He recognizes them as May's, a memory of her injured ankle flashing in his mind. A dreadful thought strikes him. Perhaps her injury is the cause of her fever. He gasps, his face a mask of dawning horror at the possibility. His dark thoughts are broken by a small, bleeding creature landing on his head. He finds himself surrounded by a small, curious herd of goats. Laughing, he tells his new friends that he has no room of his own. A goat nudges him, and he suddenly realizes that he does have a room. Standing in the barn, he summons his pocket dimension, calling out room. He cautiously peeks through the shimmering doorway that has appeared before him. He is stunned to find the space transformed into an impossible tiki lounge. With a shock, he realizes that the familiar space has not been reset. He feels completely bewildered, as he cannot recall ever redecorating the place. A familiar dolphin-like shape on a beer sign gives him his first clue. He hears a cheerful humming sound coming from deeper within the strange room. He throws open a door to find his old friend, Gale, welcoming him back. Overjoyed, he cries that he cannot believe they have been reunited at last. Gale explains it redecorated because Tenma was taking so long to return. The AI admits it always believed he was safe, though it seems thinner. Tenma is taken aback, asking if it is truly his old friend, Gale. Through tears, Gale insists it's just a misunderstanding and is not crying. Tenma smiles warmly, saying a lot has happened, and asks to tell the story. He stops himself, remembering he has something important he must ask Gale first. Gale agrees, but announces that it is both good news and bad news. Tenma is surprised by the AI's sudden and cryptic announcement. He asks Gale to repeat itself, wanting to know which news to hear first. He considers the possibilities, his mind immediately jumping to the worst-case scenario. He decides to hear the bad news first. A choice Gale notes is typical. Gale begins, saying he hates the thought of returning to his old training. The AI reveals it can only materialize within the room and cannot travel with him. It gives him a sad, sidelong glance, its expression full of deep regret. Seeing its face, Tenma asks what is wrong, his voice soft with concern. He apologizes, realizing Gale is the one who is truly disappointed by the news. Gale perks up, suggesting they build a special space just for them inside the room. It tells him that meeting him made it the luckiest being in the entire world. Tenma smiles gently, replying that he was the lucky one to have met Gale. His thoughts drift back, the scene fading to a memory of his past life. He recalls escaping an unrewarding reality by immersing himself in video games. He remembers his online friends, a generation disappointed by the real world. He remembers his lonely death, collapsed on the floor of his filthy apartment. He had no expectations for what would happen to him after he died. He recalls waking in a sterile white room before the agent, Anna. Anna had explained the tutorial would end after 3 months or at level 10. He remembers her flustered state, surrounded by blaring alarms and system warnings. He thinks back on how she was clearly not the type to be a comm agent. He remembers the welcome message and how he never got to speak freely. He recalls the simple joy of having a youthful, energetic body again. He remembers the profound pleasure of eating a truly delicious meal. He recalls the moment the 3-month mark passed with absolutely no change. He remembers the crushing despair of realizing his long confinement had just begun. He thinks of Anna, wondering if, in her own way, she was his benefactor. He spent 15 long years training, with only Gale's small icon for company. The endless time in that lonely space felt like a true eternity. He was trapped in a training space, forced to fight monsters all alone. He recalls the grueling, bloody effort of continuing to level up by himself. Gale explains it took a month after reincarnation just to notice the room. Tenma recalls hiding in the forest, explaining his difficult circumstances. He remembers finding the sick, collapsed fox girl, May, in the tall grass. He remembers gently tending to her wounds with his own hands. He recalls giving her space, watching over her from a safe distance. He remembers hiding, treated as a suspicious person despite his kindness. He remembers deciding to finally act on his own initiative. He remembers approaching the village, determined to be kind despite the suspicion. Back in the present, he asks Gale what the good news is. Gale excitedly hops out of the tub, ready to show him the surprise. It tells him that it would be much faster to just show him directly. The AI leads him through the tiki lounge, bouncing with giddy anticipation. It stops at a door at the back of the room, telling him they've arrived. Tenma peers inside, wondering what he is looking at in the dimly lit room. He gasps in recognition. It's his old room, with all his furniture. He sees the small wooden figurines he carved, still sitting on a shelf. He picks up one of his old, familiar leather-bound notebooks. He flips through it, realizing it contains 15 years of his precious research. He had given up, assuming everything had been reset upon his reincarnation. Gale asks if it was good news, and Tenma thanks his friend profusely. A sudden, panicked look crosses Tenma's face as he remembers something crucial. Gale asks what is wrong as Tenma suddenly rushes off into the room. He kneels and opens a hidden trapdoor in the middle of the floor. He descends into a cellar, realizing it's his old, hidden storage space. These are the supplies he carefully stockpiled to counter the system's bugs. He searches through the crates, sure a time-stop function kept them fresh. He finds it, the legendary tier elixir he had nearly forgotten about. He quickly tucks the ornate, priceless vial into his back pocket. He turns to leave, asking Gale what he intends to do with the item. He explains May's fever and his plan to use the elixir to save her. Gale's expression turns serious, its cheerful demeanor vanishing in an instant. The AI states that while his intentions are good, it must object to his plan. Tenma is shocked, asking why Gale would possibly be against his decision. He puts his hand on the elixir in his pocket, ready to argue his case. He holds the vial, Gale floating beside him with a small, glowing lantern. Gale explains what happens when a suspicious boy has a priceless item. It warns that greedy people will stop at nothing to take it from him. Tenma looks horrified, realizing his kindness could have terrible consequences. He looks at the elixir, the solution to his problem, now a source of conflict. In another world, Anna cracks open a can of a potent energy drink. She presses the cold can to her face, weary from her long day's work. She sits on a subway platform, lost in thought about her responsibilities. She reflects on Tenma's incredible effort during his 15-year trial. She worries that reincarnators with too much power can be exploited and lose their way. In the sterile corporate afterlife, Anna sits alone on a subway platform. She is overcome with worry, a premonition of a shadowy, menacing figure. A train thunders past, its roar a physical manifestation of her anxiety. The scene transitions from the bleak station to a simple, rustic home. In her bed, the little fox girl, May, stirs from her feverish sleep. Her family joyfully rushes to her bedside as she finally sits up. Misha embraces her little sister, overcome with relief as May looks on, confused. May looks up at her older sister, her voice small, asking why she's crying. Misha simply chokes out a small yeah, wiping a tear from her eye. May learns she was unconscious until Ranga brought someone with a special medicine. The little girl's face lights up with a radiant smile, understanding she was saved. Overcome, Ranga pulls his whole family into a massive, sobbing group hug. Tenma watches the scene, quietly wondering if his risky plan has truly worked. His thoughts drift back to the moments before, to his secret conversation. In his pocket dimension, Gale had warned him, asking him to imagine the scenario. A strange boy producing a priceless elixir would be unnatural, Tenma had agreed. It would expose his abnormal powers and stockpiles, likely causing great chaos. Tenma had acknowledged the logic, admitting that he understood the risks well. But even so, he knew in his heart that he had to help her. Seeing his resolve, Gale insisted that he must follow its plan exactly. Tenma had listened to the instructions, his face a mask of worried determination. He had asked what he needed to do to make the plan work. Gale's first instruction was a shock. He had to damage the elixir bottle. And so, the carefully constructed performance began in the world outside. He now stood before the grateful family, his secret plan in motion. Sasha holds the bottle, asking why he would give such a precious thing to strangers. Flustered, Tenma can only stammer, scratching the back of his head nervously. Ranga proudly puts an arm around the smiling woman, introducing her as his wife. Tenma is utterly stunned to learn the fierce warrior is married to her. Inside their home, Ranga formally introduces Tenma, who bows respectfully. Sasha introduces their other daughter, Maylin, who looks just like a younger May. She then introduces her stepsister, Misha, who offers a quiet welcome. Tenma observes that little May is the spitting image of her beautiful mother. May studies his face intently, asking if she has seen him somewhere before. Ranga finally asks the important question, where did he get the elixir? Tenma begins his fabricated story, explaining it is a family heirloom. His grandfather told him that he must always help those in need. He internally asks Gale if this story will be enough to convince them. Ranga and Sasha exchange a look, processing his incredible, noble tale. Sasha realizes the aged bottle must have been treasured by his family for generations. Timma feels a pang of guilt over the deception, however necessary it is. Sasha takes his hands, her eyes shining as she thanks him for the precious gift. Overcome with emotion, she calls out his name, her face beaming with pure gratitude. Ranga grabs him in a bone-crushing hug, sobbing that he saved May's life. Squashed in the embrace, Timma can only stammer that he was happy to help. Sasha gently scolds her husband for being too rough with their guest. Though not hurt, Timma is amazed by the raw power of the beast man. He looks away, slightly overwhelmed by the intense display of emotion. The family is whole again, and Timma is now a welcome presence among them. The next morning, Timma greets the day from the window of the barn. He looks out at the quiet village, a sight that is becoming familiar. The rustic home stands peacefully against the backdrop of the mountains. A sense of calm has settled over the small, remote homestead. He is licked awake by the wet, rough tongue of a friendly goat. He sits up with a yawn, finding himself surrounded by a herd of them. He had chosen the barn to avoid anyone discovering his dimension room. He hears a soft sound as the barn door begins to creak open. May peeks around the door, offering a shy but happy good morning. Timma greets her back as she runs to his side, full of energy. Misha appears behind her, staring intently as he asks where Ranga is. May points the way, telling him that her brother is over here. She scampers ahead, her fluffy tail bouncing as Timma follows her. Villagers greet the energetic May, happy to see her fully recovered. Two women notice Timma, wondering who the new boy from another village is. They arrive at the village well, where a shirtless Ranga greets them warmly. The wolfman strains, his muscles bulging as he hauls up the heavy bucket. He successfully draws the water, handing it to a grateful villager. Timma peers into the well, remarking on how incredibly deep it is. He offers to take a turn, but Ranga warns him that it's very heavy. The proud warrior admits that the hard work is taking a toll on him. He panics, worried Sasha would be furious if their savior did manual labor. The heavy wooden bucket plummets back down into the darkness of the well. Timma effortlessly pulls it up, saying he is indebted to Ranga's family. A pleased Ranga snuggles May, promising to tell Sasha all about it. A villager watches from afar, remarking on the boy's surprising strength. The village children flock to him, eagerly asking him to draw water for them. He puffs out his chest, telling them to leave it to their big brother. May watches him, a look of sudden, dawning realization on her face. Later, smoke curls from the chimney of the family's cozy home. Inside, Sasha enters with a pot, announcing that dinner is almost ready. At the table, Timma is busy writing in his notebook by candlelight. Misha crouches by the hearth, carefully tending to the crackling fire. A simple but hearty meal of thick soup and fresh bread is laid out. At the table, May reveals that Timma was the one who found her. Overcome with emotion again, Ranga pulls a startled Timma into another tight hug. Sasha asks calmly if this means he was in the forest for a month. Held tight by Ranga, Timma realizes he's in a very awkward spot. Ranga glares at him, his protective instincts overriding his earlier gratitude. The tension breaks as Ranga bursts into laughter, teasing his poor sense of direction. Misha looks on, her expression one of clear annoyance at their loud antics. A close-up reveals her cold, unreadable expression as she silently observes. Back in his dimension room, Gale relaxes on a couch, reviewing notes. Timma enters the pocket dimension, back from his time with the family. He announces his return to Gale, who happily welcomes him back. Gale immediately asks for an update on the condition of the little girl. He reports that she's fine, and he plans to gift another bird to them. But he admits that for now, such a gift is impossible. Gale asks why. Timma walks with his companion, preparing to explain the complicated situation. The village chief and his son had come to complain about his generous gift. Gale floats beside him, asking what he did after they confronted him. A freshly hunted horo-horo bird is carefully placed into a wooden crate. Eugerin and his mother greedily hoist the prize, demanding it be shared equally. In his dimension room, Gale smirks while watching a replay of the incident. Timma thinks if they want the birds so badly, they should hunt it themselves. He recalls Ranga's warning that the number of monsters has been increasing lately. Ranga had explained that the clever Horohoro birds are nearly impossible to hunt with bows. Timma knows he can hunt them easily with his throwing skills, a dangerous secret. He wonders if hunting them is truly that difficult for everyone else in the village. He confirms to Gale that he is hiding his true power, just as instructed. Gale cautions the kind-hearted Tenma, saying he can't always afford to be so nice. The AI looks at its tablet, its expression growing serious as it analyzes the data. A graph shows a disturbing trend, suggesting the entire ecosystem is becoming unbalanced. Gale asks Tenma how long he plans to stay, wondering when the merchant will arrive. Pausing his chores, Tenma thoughtfully considers his companion's important question. He resolves to stay, wanting to repay the village's kindness before he leaves. Gale sweats nervously, worried by Tenma's compassionate but potentially dangerous decision. The AI reminds him not to stand out too much, and Tenma promises to be careful. Tenma privately hopes to break down the wall he feels between himself and Misha. Having finished his sweeping, Tenma announces that the barn is finally tidy. When Gale asks what's next, Tenma grins and simply tells the AI to watch. He unveils a magnificent, roaring waterfall inside his dimension room, stunning Gale. Overwhelmed, Gale stammers in awe, as Tenma says he wanted to show it this. The AI tearfully thanks him, but Tenma says he has one more thing to share. He reveals a small, perfectly carved wooden figurine in the shape of Gale. Gale is deeply touched, admitting that even its logical mind has been moved. Clutching the gift, the AI weeps, declaring that Tenma is the absolute best. Meanwhile, Misha seethes with anger, thinking Eugerin is the lowest form of scum. She stands outside the village, clutching her sword with fierce determination. Eugerin confronts her, asking what she's talking about, bringing up Tenma's name. Misha glances back at the village, her expression clouded with worry and conflict. She remembers seeing Tenma playing happily with May and the other village children. Eugerin suggests the monster population suspiciously grew right before Tenma arrived. He adds that the merchant, Solon, is now a month late and still hasn't appeared. Misha looks down, a bead of sweat on her temple, his words clearly unsettling her. Eugerin continues, pointing out that Tenma somehow hunted two difficult Horohoro birds. He calls out Misha's name, her fox-like ear twitching at the sound. He makes a slimy offer, help with his archery, and he will help her dream. He grabs her arm, insisting that she could at least lend him a hand. She violently twists away from his grasp, shouting that she absolutely refuses. She knows Tenma is a mystery, but he is also the one who saved her sister. She yells that Eugerin is just like his parents, that he is the real scum. Eugerin's ugly, sneering face is reflected in her determined, tear-filled eye. She declares with all her heart that she will achieve her dreams on her own. Eugerin is left completely stunned by her passionate and defiant outburst. He scoffs, muttering that the sister of a fool is just as foolish. As he stalks off, he throws a final threat, warning that she'll regret this. Misha is left standing alone, her head bowed and tail drooping in the aftermath. From a distance, Tenma watches her solitary figure, having witnessed the entire scene. He thinks of the happy children of the village, their innocent faces in his mind. His expression hardens with determination, knowing he must do something about this. In the corporate afterlife, Anna stands alone in an elevator, holding a drink. Hagen and a co-worker are discussing the difficulty of dealing with their divine clients. Anna remarks that she's surprised Hagen had such a past, as some gods are reasonable. The elevator panel shows a dizzying array of floors, indicating the massive building. Anna and Hagen peek around a corner, observing another colleague from a distance. Hagen appears suddenly, calling out to Anna and startling her with a jolt. He asks for an update on his case, quickly clarifying that he means Tenma. Anna reports that, thankfully, no complaints have been filed with customer service. She notes that while reincarnators often cause trouble, Tenma seems to be fine. She suggests that Hagen might be worrying too much, as Tenma is quite resolute. However, her own brow furrows slightly as she considers the complexities of the situation. Hagen reveals his true fear, that Tenma's nature attracts parasitic troublemakers. Anna is confused, asking what kind of people he means and why Tenma would attract them. Hagen explains they are pathetic types whose envy quickly curdles into pure malice. He says they cannot forgive those better than them, which breeds a deep resentment. This cognitive dissonance escalates until they convince themselves their target is the villain. Anna is left speechless, a bead of sweat running down her face at the chilling profile. Hagen states that Tenma's immense power makes him a perfect enemy for such people. The description reminds Anna of a similar troublemaker from her elementary school days. She realizes with dread that such people will flock to Tenma, regardless of his wishes. She worries how Tenma can deal with this, but Hagen says his personality is the real issue. They stand in tense silence as the elevator continues its silent journey upward. Hagen grits his teeth, frustrated by Tenma's terrible compatibility with such manipulators. The scene fades to black, hinting at the dark machinations to come. In a dimly lit storeroom, Eugerin peeks in, asking if his father called him. The elder, seated at a desk, orders his son to do something about that guy. Eugerin looks annoyed, the window behind him rattling from an unseen wind. He asks who his father means, and the elder clarifies it's the one who ruined their meal. Eugerin's face sours as he recalls the image of Tenma playing with the children. The elder complains that Tenma is suspiciously passionate about things that don't concern him. A fire crackles ominously in the hearth as the elder continues his bitter rant. He imagines Tenma hoarding the village's resources and turning the people against him. He frets that such a development would threaten their position of power in the village. Eugerin agrees, noting the strange occurrences since Tenma's arrival. The monster population has increased, he adds, and the merchant still hasn't come. The elder fears that if more strange things happen, they will lose all control. Zlatan enters the room, drenched in sweat and carrying a heavy load of firewood. Eugerin dismissively tells him to just stack the firewood in the corner. Zlatan clicks his tongue in quiet annoyance as he follows the petty command. The father and son complain that the firewood seems to run out much faster lately. The elder grumbles that the increase in troublesome villagers is not enjoyable at all. His face is a mask of worry, shadowed by the growing instability of the village. Eugerin leans in, a conspiratorial gleam in his eye, telling his father he has an idea. He whispers his wicked plan, a smug grin spreading across his face. Zlatan, now wearing sunglasses, glances back, having clearly overheard their plotting. The elder's eye is wide with shock and horror at his son's proposal. He asks Eugerin if he truly intends to go that far with his scheme. A shadowy figure tells the elder that his father is too soft, allowing others to get cocky. Eugerin's face twists into a cruel grin as he tells his father to leave everything to him. A set of fresh footprints in a muddy path marks the beginning of a dark journey. In the deep woods, the cloaked Tenma pauses, his expression lost in thought. He spots heavy footprints and calls out, knowing Ranga is hiding nearby. A heavy boot steps forward, revealing the hidden man's hidden presence. The wolfman Ranga emerges, his gaze stern and questioning. The small boy and the large warrior face each other in the clearing. Tenma internally notes Ranga's poor tracking skills for his combat level. Ranga's sharp ear twitches as he demands to know who sent Tenma. Suddenly, the proud warrior throws himself to the ground before a shocked Tenma. With desperate eyes, Ranga begs the boy to become his master. Tenma is left completely speechless by the warrior's stunning plea. Now calmer, Ranga explains that no one sent him to follow Tenma. He was inspired by seeing Tenma's many contributions to the village. He wants to become stronger for his daughters and for his home. He begs for Tenma's help, dreaming of impressing his daughter May. Tenma says he must first consult with his wise mentor, Gale. But Ranga is impatient, physically pleading for an immediate answer. Ranga recalls how Tenma has taught children and improved the village stoves. He marvels at how effortlessly Tenma helps with hunting and chores. The warrior reflects on the boy's quiet, overwhelming competence. Looking at his family photo, he admits Tenma seems more adult than him. He cannot understand why such a capable young man is so modest. Tenma panics, trying to hide the fact he is mentally middle-aged. He quickly invents a story about a wise grandfather and master. Ranga completely buys the story, connecting it to the life-saving elixir. Tenma breathes a quiet sigh of relief that his lie was accepted. His relief is cut short when Ranga asks for the master's name. Ranga assumes the name must be dignified and impressive. Tenma sweats nervously, desperately trying to think of a name. He stammers, the first syllable of a familiar name on his lips. He finally names his fictional master, Gale. The scene transitions to the impossible space of the Dimension Room. Gale, the AI, is absolutely furious at being called an old man. Tenma sheepishly apologizes for using Gale's name in his lie. He pours drinks, ready to get his friend's strategic advice. He explains Ranga's plea and the threat from the village elder. Gale appears to be dozing off while Tenma explains the situation. The AI advises that leaving the village is the safest but unlikely option. Tenma confirms he has too much left to do to simply leave now. He is more worried about Ranga's family than he is for himself. He believes he can apply tactics from his old online games here. Gale's expression turns serious, a plan forming in its mind. Gale offers a plan, but it requires Tenma's absolute obedience. Tenma agrees immediately, much to Gale's surprise. The AI questions his blind faith, but Tenma is certain. He explains his trust in Gale is absolute, so he needs no details. Gale is visibly moved by its brother's unwavering trust. Flustered but determined, Gale prepares to lay out the plan. The AI begins the briefing, resolved to not let Tenma down. Tenma now waits inside the village elder's sparsely decorated home. He turns his attention to the framed pictures hanging on the wall. He guesses the paintings depict scenes from the village's history. He notes the paintings are well done, though their content is questionable. The door opens to reveal the elder, Eugerin, and Zlatan. The elder sits down and announces he has a job for Tenma. Tenma looks up, surprised by the unexpected offer. The elder states that only those who contribute deserve to live there. Tenma agrees, but privately notes the elder's extreme greed. The scene shifts to the elder's house under a heavy downpour. Zlatan recalls the previous night, wondering about the elder's ominous words. Eugerin had planned to send Tenma to find the missing merchant. He framed the merchant, claiming he stole money meant for adventurers. Zlatan had tried to protest, believing in the merchant's honesty. Eugerin complained that his father was too soft on Ranga's family. The elder noted that this particular 14-year-old was unusually capable. He believes that capable people must be given difficult, fitting tasks. The mention of the dangerous Horo birds had given Zlatan pause. The elder had resolved to make Tenma understand his place. Zlatan had asked what they would do if the boy refused the task. Eugerin had replied with a simple, cruel smile. He would punish Ranga's family and use Tenma as an example. Zlatan had been shocked by the sheer malice of the plan. The elder, however, had been pleased with his son's ruthlessness. If necessary, he would have Zlatan secretly murder the boy. The memory of their dark plotting fades back to the present. Eugerin presents the loaded offer. Confident Tenma is trapped. Tenma cheerfully accepts the mission before the penalty is even finished. Eugerin laughs, thinking the boy is a fool, but Zlatan is confused. The conspirators are utterly stunned by Tenma's immediate acceptance. He respectfully states he is happy to help the village that took him in. The three of them stare in baffled silence at the boy's reaction. The elder and his son can only conclude that the boy is a fool. Eugerin decides to exploit the boy's apparent naivety. Tenma notes that events are unfolding exactly as Gale predicted. He wonders if the next part of Gale's prediction will also come true. The elder, regaining his composure, adds another condition to the deal. He assigns Latan as an escort, a bodyguard who is also a threat. Tenma politely accepts, internally unnerved by Gale's perfect foresight. Ranga challenges Tenma to a fight before his dangerous journey. Tenma prepares himself, knowing Ranga is testing his strength for the mission. Ranga lunges forward, his powerful leg kicking up dirt. Misha watches her brother-in-law, Ranga, begin the spar. Ranga lands a solid kick, sending Tenma stumbling forward. Misha sees the powerful kick make contact. Ranga realizes Tenma managed to absorb the impact at the last second. Impressed by his skill, Ranga roars Tenma's name and attacks again. Tenma fluidly ducks under a powerful, sweeping punch from the Wolfman. Ranga is shocked that the boy managed to evade his attack. Tenma's gaze is sharp, his focus entirely on the fight. Misha realizes Ranga is underestimating his opponent's true ability. Finally, Ranga manages to catch Tenma, locking him in a headlock. In a blur of motion, Ranga grapples Tenma, flipping him through the air. Misha watches from the tree line, her mouth agape, in utter shock. A heavy thud echoes as Tenma hits the muddy ground hard. Ranga pins the gasping boy, a triumphant grin on his face. He suggests a break, but Tenma eagerly asks for another round. Ranga smirks, impressed by the boy's surprising display of guts. He locks Tenma in a headlock, vowing to beat out his weaknesses. Suddenly, Ranga freezes, noticing Misha's intense stare from the trees. Misha looks on disapprovingly, thinking her brother is getting carried away. Ranga flinches under her gaze, nervously calling out her name. He apologizes for his childishness, but Tenma insists he is truly happy. He explains his solitary training never allowed for real combat experience. Fighting a real person, he realizes, provides an invaluable amount of experience. Ranga is stunned, seeing the genuine joy on the boy's face. 7 days prior, their training began with a long-distance run. 5 days ago, they honed their presence detection skills. 3 days ago, they practiced hunting, Tenma eagerly spotting their prey. Ranga admits his own training left him drained, but Tenma was tireless. He was ashamed, but Tenma cheerfully says he has already recovered. Beneath the bright sun, their grueling training sessions continued. Tenma, now more confident, challenges Ranga to a rematch. They face off again as Misha watches from safe distance. Tenma stands ready, his focus entirely on his powerful opponent. Misha observes them, her expression thoughtful and unreadable. She sits under a tree, musing on how strong Tenma has become. She wonders if she can ever be that strong, if her dream is possible. A single, frustrated tear traces a path down her cheek. Mid-fight, Tenma suddenly stops, a look of alarm on his face. His senses tell him Misha's presence has inexplicably vanished. His mental map shows only an empty void where she once stood. He wonders if the sudden disappearance was just his imagination. Ranga seizes the opening, catching the distracted boy in a headlock. Birds scatter from the trees as Tenma lets out a cry. He struggles against the powerful hold, yelling that it hurts. In his private dimension, Tenma stretches his sore muscles after training. Gale lectures him, stating his combat skill would take 18 years to max. Tenma grimaces, sweating at the thought of such a long road. The dolphin-like AI prepares to brief him on the next part of their plan. It explains that the Elder's family is a formidable and malicious threat. But Gale has a counterplan to protect Ranga from any retaliation. Tenma asks if it's possible, and Gale confidently says it is. The AI tells him to get some rest before his departure tomorrow. It playfully pounces on him, insisting he heal his injuries first. Gale presents a bottle of healing potion for his aches and pains. It then reveals it detected a strange, boss-level presence during training. Gale questions if such a powerful monster could even exist in this area. Tenma agrees it's unlikely, dismissing the feeling as his imagination. Gale struggles to explain the anomaly, noting how unusual it is. The AI gives Tenma a final pat, declaring his treatment complete. Tenma gets dressed, thanking his companion for all the help. Suddenly, his presence detection skill flares to life in his mind. The mental map shows a signal near the goat family's pen. He senses someone approaching, their presence faint but steady. He recognizes the unique movement pattern. It must be Little May. He tells Gale it's time to go, ready to leave his pocket dimension. Smoke curls from a chimney of Ranga's small, cozy home. The family, with Tenma as their guest, sits down for dinner. Ranga playfully steals a bite of spaghetti right off Tenma's fork. The plate is piled high with delicious-looking spaghetti and meatballs. Ranga quickly devours his own serving, already wanting more. Both he and Tenma grin, asking for seconds with full cheeks. Sasha smiles warmly, happy to serve them another helping. She notices Misha isn't eating, reminding her she must be strong. Misha's fork hangs in the air, her appetite seemingly gone. Heeding her mother's words, she begins eating with renewed vigor. Sasha turns to Tenma, thanking him for his contributions. She explains his foraging of meat and herbs has been a great help. Ranga boasts he helped too, but Sasha notes he only brought herbs. Ranga proudly drapes an arm over Tenma, calling him his disciple. He explains how Tenma taught him the value of skills he'd overlooked. He gratefully admits these skills are more vital for survival than fighting. Tenma gets flustered, saying he was just repeating his grandfather's wisdom. After the meal, Sasha pulls him aside for a private conversation. Tenma listens intently, a bit nervous about her serious demeanor. Sasha looks down, choosing her words carefully. A dark panel transitions the scene to a more serious tone. As they clean up, Sasha thanks Tenma for helping with the chores. The family enjoys a quiet evening inside their small home. Sasha explains Ranga trains not for adventure, but to protect them. She reassures Tenma, telling him not to worry about her husband. She thanks him again, but admits she is still deeply concerned. She warns that power changes people, awakening their greed. Her eyes narrow, recalling the village chief wasn't always so awful. A flashback shows the chief as a hard-working, if greedy man. Tenma listens with a look of serious concern on his face. Sasha says the man the chief is now is a different person entirely. As he prepares to leave, she wishes him well and tells him to be safe. Misha stands outside the house, holding a stack of firewood. She peers through the window, watching Tenma's exchange with her mother. Her expression is troubled, her mind filled with worry. The full moon shines down on the dark, silent forest. A small, helpless creature cries out in a moonlit clearing. Two leering goblins approach, drooling with malicious intent. They corner their prey, one raising a crude, rusty blade. Suddenly, they recoil in terror at a presence behind them. A large, spectral fox emerges from the shadows, its eyes glowing. The goblins are sent flying, dispatched by the mysterious creature. The fox stands protectively over the small animals it has saved. With a powerful leap, it bounds into the night sky. It lands atop a high cliff, watching over the forest below. A small, isolated village rests in a valley, protected by a simple wooden wall. Under the full moon, a spectral white fox stands vigil on a rocky cliff. Gale the AI is suddenly startled, sensing an unknown and mysterious presence nearby. A hand diligently writes, noting that the situation is more complex than anticipated. Gale explains that a new possibility has emerged, but reassures Tenma of its support. The AI flinches, a powerful tremor shaking the very fabric of its dimension. Wondering what the disturbance was, Gale rushes towards the door to investigate the source. It peeks outside, a bead of sweat on its brow, sensing immense danger. Gale is horrified to see the dimension area itself erupting in destructive chaos. It realizes that something is fighting within a replica of the training grounds. The scale of the conflict is immense. It's a full-scale war between hordes. One of the warring factions is clearly made up of four-legged creatures. The other side fights on two legs. Gale analyzes the battle from afar. A cunning thought strikes Gale. This chaos could be turned to Tenma's advantage. A simple, quiet house stands alone in a peaceful, rustic setting. Tenma stands silhouetted on a hill, surrounded by goats under a bright sun. He reads a book, thinking aloud that his departure is set for the next day. From her window, Misha watches him, her expression thoughtful under the moonlight. In the afterlife office, Section Chief Hagen meticulously disassembles an old pistol. Anna bursts into the room, urgently calling out for her section chief, Hagen. Hagen asks what the matter is, and Anna explains she has news from sales. He correctly guesses her urgent news concerns their reincarnator, Tenma, offering her water. Overwhelmed, Anna gratefully chugs the entire bottle of water in one go. She reports that Tenma is safe, much to Hagen's relief. She explains the goddess is pleased and will now act as Tenma's familiar. Hagen is pleased Tenma has a divine guide, but Anna remains visibly anxious. He leans back, thinking that if a god is involved, everything should be fine. Anna nervously admits her concern stems from the familiar's rather alarming title. Their minds conjure a horrifying image of the Slaughter King of the Great Ocean. Hagen questions the safety of the situation, but Anna has no reassuring answers. The news is too much. Hagen massages his temple, feeling a headache coming on. He reasons that no complaints for over a month must mean things are fine. Anna points out that his isolation is likely the reason for the lack of trouble. Hagen waves his hand dismissively, hoping that's not the case. He explains that a reclusive reincarnator is a problem, given the high summoning cost. Anna reminds him that Tenma is not alone. The familiar is with him. She hands him a document, remembering another detail from the report. Hagen explains reincarnators are summoned for major crises like demon lords or apocalypses. Anna looks up from the files, questioning the meaning of compensation. He clarifies it's for when a life is taken by mistake, disrupting causality. As compensation, they are sent to another world with powerful, cheat-like abilities. Anna recalls her own series of blunders during Tenma's reincarnation process. Hagen continues to review the official documents related to Tenma's case. He finds it strange Tenma was sent to a stable world, unsure of the reason. Anna shifts her weight, her feet tapping nervously on the polished office floor. She asks how he can tell the world is stable just from the paperwork. He explains the slow bureaucracy. Applications take centuries to process. The long delay means the Bureau saw no urgency in this particular summons. As he snaps the pistol back together, Anna finally understands the system. She wonders aloud why Tenma, specifically, was chosen for this peaceful world. Hagen can only grunt in agreement, sharing her confusion. He places the finished pistol on his desk, his thoughts still on the mystery. He suspects a deeper purpose at play, one they are not meant to understand. Back in the village, the rustic barn stands next to Ranga's family home. A lone door stands impossibly in the yard, surrounded by sleeping goats. Inside the dimension room, Gale lets out a sudden, powerful sneeze. Tenma asks if Gale sneezed, and the AI wonders if someone is gossiping. Gale's expression hardens as it gets back to the serious business of their plan. Gale outlines the mission: find and protect the merchant Solon alongside Zlatan. But the AI reveals there is another, secret objective Tenma must also complete. Tenma is taken aback, exclaiming in surprise about a hidden condition. The first problem is the village chief and Ugerin, who want him gone. They will use their enforcer, Zlatan, to sabotage Tenma during the mission. Tenma absorbs the information, his expression grim and focused on the plan. Gale holds up a flipper, indicating there is much more to the briefing. It presents a complex board filled with data, charts, and alarming trend lines. Tenma breaks into a nervous sweat, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. The data shows logging has caused an explosion in the horned rabbit population. He realizes the problem is far worse when viewed as cold, hard data. Gale quizzes him, asking what the logical consequence of this population boom will be. A dreadful realization dawns on Tenma as he connects the ecological dots. Larger predators are being drawn to the area and will soon threaten the village. Tenma panics at the news, but Gale informs him the situation is even worse. Gale reveals a final, subtle problem that will soon become a catastrophic one. With the merchant gone, the village's salt supply is dwindling, threatening starvation. Tenma sits in stunned silence, the full weight of the crisis pressing down on him. Ranga notes their single well isn't enough, adding a water shortage to their woes. The village's rapid, unsustainable growth is the root cause of all these problems. Gale points out that Tenma's own kindness makes him overlook people's flaws. Gale believes it is the only one aware of the full picture, then reconsiders. It glances at the figures, suspecting that perhaps one other person might understand. Tenma questions this, but Gale can only offer a non-committal maybe. He feels trapped in a complex game with too many objectives to possibly achieve. He looks down at the few cards he holds, his expression hardening with resolve. His only assets are Zlatan and Gale, a meager hand against impossible odds. He remembers the smiling faces of Ranga's family, all cheering him on. He wants to save them all, but fears he is playing an unwinnable game. A calm, familiar voice calls his name, cutting through his despair. Gale presents a binder containing the complete strategy, renewing Tenma's hope. The AI instructs him to memorize the plan it is about to explain. He takes the binder, understanding the weight of the information held within its pages. He places his absolute trust in his brother, ready to execute the plan. Gale gives a confident huff, certain of their victory if the plan is followed. It believes that if Tenma follows the plan, the village can survive every crisis. The plan will also neutralize the corrupt village chief and his arrogant son. Tenma pictures the faces of the elder, Eugerin, and Zlatan, his primary obstacles. He doubts even Gale could defeat the chief, but the AI is confident. Tenma concedes with a laugh that subduing the chief is their greatest challenge. His senses suddenly flare, alerting him to an unexpected and immediate presence. As Gale begins the briefing, Tenma realizes someone is approaching, far too early. Outside the barn, a hooded figure with a lantern wonders if it's May or Ranga. Inside, Tenma panics, realizing his secret room must not be discovered. Gale urges him to read the whole plan as Tenma, now packed, heads for the door. The quiet farmhouse and barn sit peacefully in the gray light of dawn. A cloaked Sasha knocks softly on the barn door, calling out for Tenma. A close-up shows a hand reaching for the metal doorknob. Sasha's face is set with a serious, unwavering determination. Tenma's hand turns the knob, preparing to open the door. With a soft click, the lock on the barn door gives way. The vast, silent landscape is revealed as a new day begins. Miles away, Misha finishes her morning sword practice, counting her 100 swing. The tip of her blade scrapes the earth as she completes her training routine. A sudden, loud crash echoes through the woods, startling her and a nearby owl. What was that? Misha gasps in alarm as the startled bird takes flight. She peeks through the trees and sees the hulking Zlatan holding a massive axe. The axe head whistles through the air, a blur of deadly, destructive force. Zlatan smashes a training dummy with a crudely drawn face on it. The smiling face on the dummy is split clean in two by the powerful blow. Misha's expression is one of pure shock at the display of raw power. The training dummy explodes into a cloud of splinters and wood fragments. Misha stares in horror, sweat on her brow, as the debris flies past her. This is bad, she thinks frantically. I have to warn Tenma. Eugerin appears, sneering that Zlatan's intimidation has certainly improved. Zlatan stands silently as Eugerin contemptuously kicks the remains of the dummy. Misha races back to the farmhouse, drawn by the light in the barn. She stops short, her expression turning from panic to utter confusion. She sees her sister, Sasha, speaking earnestly with a surprised Tenma. Tenma looks completely flustered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Misha ducks behind a low stone wall to watch the scene unfold unseen. She wonders why Tenma is so shocked and what her sister is discussing with him. Her anxiety grows as she tries to figure out what is happening. Tenma's backpack and gear sit ready for the perilous journey ahead. The journey begins as Tenma and Zlatan head into the deep woods. Tenma walks, lost in thought, his mind replaying the morning's events. He sweats, unable to shake the memory of the bizarre conversation. He remembers Sasha standing at the barn door, calling his name. She had blushed, asking him to marry Misha and stay with them forever. Tenma's face had frozen in a comical expression of absolute shock. Sasha had quickly apologized for being so sudden and surprising him. She told him to just focus on returning safely, and they could talk later. He had been left standing dumbfounded in the doorway as she departed. Back in the present, Tenma sighs, still trying to make sense of it all. He thinks that while he supports Misha, he hadn't seen her in that way. He glances back toward the village, his thoughts still on Misha. His mind, however, drifts to her fluffy foxtail, which he finds magnificent. He blushes slightly, a small smile on his face as he thinks of her tail. A dark, spiky object suddenly flies past his head, startling him. Whoa, what was that? He yelps, snapping back to reality. Zlatan, unconcerned, calmly suggests they stop for lunch. Tenma lets out a small, relieved puff of air. They find a clearing, Zlatan, noting the area, is deserted. Their simple lunch of bread and meat is laid out on a large map. They discuss the missing merchant, agreeing his wagon should have left a trace. Tenma asks about Solon, noting that his mentor Gale had also mentioned the merchant. Zlatan turns away, a thoughtful expression on his face. He begins to sketch with charcoal, explaining that Solon was a serious man. Tenma watches, fascinated by the big man's unexpected artistic talent. Zlatan continues drawing, adding that Solon was a reliable man who followed orders. Tenma's eyes light up with surprise and genuine admiration. The finished sketch is a perfect likeness. Tenma exclaims that Zlatan is amazing. Looking at the portrait, Tenma feels he now understands a man. He realizes the beautiful paintings in the elder's house were also Zlatan's work. Tenma looks at the detailed notes in his binder, deep in thought. Zlatan admits he also carves wooden toys, which the village children love. A brief memory shows happy children playing with the toys Zlatan carved. Tenma smiles warmly, his entire perception of his companion shifting. He thinks that Zlatan, despite his fearsome appearance, is actually a kind man. Their preparations complete, Zlatan asks if Tenma has forgotten anything. From off-panel, Tenma gives a cheerful and affirmative reply. A montage begins, showing the two continuing their journey through the wilderness. They train together, hauling heavy yokes laden with water buckets. At night, they sit together by a crackling campfire beside their tent. They share skewers of roasted meat, a quiet camaraderie growing between them. As the sun rises over the mountains, they stretch and prepare for the new day. They consult their map together, Tenma peering over Zlatan's massive shoulder. They rest by a waterfall, Zlatan pointing something out to an attentive Tenma. As Tenma gathers firewood, Zlatan sits and sketches in his notepad. Zlatan shows Tenma a beautifully rendered portrait he has just drawn of him. Tenma beams with delight, holding the sketch in his hands. From his bedroll, Tenma watches Zlatan sit peacefully outside with forest animals. The two are silhouetted on a clifftop at dawn, surrounded by woodland creatures. They pass the time by playing a simple game of tic-tac-toe on their map. During a downpour, a grumpy Zlatan hides while Tenma joyfully embraces the rain. Their journey continues, a newfound friendship evident between the unlikely pair. Tenma walks confidently, thinking that perhaps Gale's predictions were mistaken. He hopes to resolve things peacefully, but then spots goblins hiding in the trees. His expression instantly hardens, his optimism vanishing in a flash. Zlatan senses the danger immediately, his face grim as he calls Tenma's name. Goblins leap from the trees, swarming towards them from all sides. A wide shot reveals they are completely surrounded by a massive goblin horde. Zlatan stands back-to-back with Tenma, growling that they are surrounded. A close-up shows Zlatan's face, his expression one of grim determination. Tenma smirks, thinking that Gale's prediction was far too accurate. The camera pulls back, showing the sheer number of goblins encircling them. The snarling monsters close in, their silhouettes looming in the foreground. A goblin horde, Tenma, Zlatan says as Tenma confirms they are surrounded. A goblin leader lets out a piercing shriek, signaling the attack. The horde surges forward, a chaotic wave of claws and teeth. From above, the goblins look like a swarming, monstrous hive. Tenma draws his blade as he and Zlatan brace for the violent onslaught. Surrounded by goblins, Tenma notes their numbers are greater than he had predicted. He worries that protecting Zlatan will complicate things, a task he could handle alone. Zlatan calls out his name as Tenma steels himself for the impending fight. He recalls Gale's strategy, to deliberately let the enemy ambush them first. Tenma's sharp eyes spot a goblin archer hidden in the branches above. The goblin archer smirks as it prepares to loose a deadly arrow. With a powerful flick of his thumb, Tenma sends a small stone flying. The projectile snaps the goblin's bowstring, rendering its weapon useless. He assesses the battlefield, noting two different kinds of vicious monsters attacking. He realizes protecting Zlatan without being noticed will be an incredible challenge. He thinks how much easier it would be if he didn't have to hide his skills. His expression shows the strain of holding back his true, overwhelming power. From Zlatan's view, another archer is seen preparing to fire from the tall grass. He explains that killing the goblin would have triggered a full-scale, frenzied assault. As he moves, his boot intentionally kicks a small stone into the air. He slides to the ground, making it look like an accidental stumble. The perfectly aimed stone strikes the second archer, neutralizing the threat. The goblin collapses silently into the undergrowth, its attack thwarted. On the ground, he steels himself, ready for the next phase of his act. The goblin horde swarms his position, believing he is now vulnerable. His eyes are sharp and focused, ready to turn the situation around. He uses his backpack as a shield, creating chaos among the attackers. They make their escape as the goblins are distracted by a decoy. Two ornate daggers fall to the ground amidst the chaos of battle. A single dagger lies in the dirt, a remnant of the unseen fight. Tenma looks on with a slightly stunned and confused expression. Zlatan checks on Tenma, who quickly confirms that he is all right. He wonders aloud if Zlatan noticed anything unusual about his actions. Zlatan internally notes that Tenma was expertly flicking stones as projectiles. He deduces Tenma's strategy of using the item box for an endless ammo supply. A small smile appears as Zlatan thinks how clever the boy's tactic is. The two stand back-to-back, completely encircled by the snarling goblin horde. A large goblin leader emerges, wielding bone clubs and rallying its minions. Zlatan inhales deeply, preparing to unleash a powerful, challenging roar. His mighty roar echoes through the forest, a deafening challenge to all. A much larger, more formidable monster appears from the treeline. Seeing the beast, Tenma realizes the next part of the plan is beginning. Zlatan unexpectedly grabs Tenma and begins a strategic, full-speed retreat. He shouts that this is just the first wave, a mere fraction of the horde. Tenma remembers the plan, create a diversion by dropping something valuable. The goblins celebrate, having discovered Zlatan's massive axe left behind. They swarm the loot, their greed completely distracting them from a fight. From a safe distance, the reason for their tactic becomes clear. A moment of darkness signifies the passage of time and a shift in scene. Several goblins now struggle to carry away their heavy, oversized prize. From their high vantage point, They observe the goblins' slow progress. Tenma explains how the plan is working, their enemies slowed by the loot. Zlatan quietly takes a swig from his bottle, contemplating the situation. Zlatan wraps a cloak around himself and tells Tenma it is time to move. Tenma calls out, asking the big man to wait for a moment. Zlatan confirms the plan. Locate their camp, then launch a pincer attack. A close-up on Zlatan's face reveals his unwavering, grim determination. Tenma suggests he should go alone, trusting in his own agility. A goblin considers that one must survive to warn the village of danger. Zlatan's expression is firm, showing he will not be easily swayed. Tenma argues Zlatan should report back, as his word carries more weight. Zlatan flatly refuses, his back turned to the boy. He explains that one person cannot perform a pincer attack and annihilate them. He continues, saying it would be disastrous if their campsite was discovered. Tenma worries that if Zlatan sees his real plan, it will cause trouble. Zlatan grimly states he won't allow another sacrifice like Solon. A finely crafted dagger, belonging to the fallen merchant, lies on the path. Tenma asks Zlatan if he had noticed the dagger on the ground. Zlatan's massive fist clenches tightly, a silent show of his grief. He remembers Gale's strict warning to never reveal his true intentions. Tenma calls out to Zlatan, asking for a moment of his time. Tenma presents a bottle, a bead of sweat on his serious face. He kneels and explains that this bottle is his ultimate trump card. He begins to reveal the true, secret contents of the bottle. A document, filled with text, is carefully unrolled from within. The camera pans across the document, revealing it to be a contract. The contract's damning details are shown, exposing the elder's treachery. The document is carefully secured back inside its glass container. In the village, Sasha winks as she polishes a beautiful, ornate bottle. She carefully places the precious bottle upon the family's small altar. Sasha stands back, satisfied, as Misha weaves a basket nearby. She turns over her shoulder and addresses her younger sister, Misha. She asks if Misha clearly relayed their earlier conversation to Tenma. Misha confirms she did, recalling how she warned him about the dangers. A flashback shows Tenma looking bewildered by her passionate outburst. She admits she's worried for his safety since he didn't seem concerned. Sasha sits down at the table, a gentle, knowing look on her face. She reassures Misha that Tenma will be fine as long as he's prepared. Misha hangs her head, her ears drooping with lingering worry. Sasha taps her chin, a playful and thoughtful idea dawning on her. She asks Misha for her opinion of Tenma, much to her sister's confusion. With a blush, Sasha suggests that marrying Tenma would be a wonderful idea. Misha is completely flabbergasted, her face a mask of pure shock. The two sisters sit at the table, the shocking proposal between them. Misha sits alone at the open window, contemplating her sister's words. The younger girls happily play with wooden figurines outside the window. Two white butterflies dance through the air, fluttering past the window. The butterflies drift into the room, floating between the two sisters. One butterfly comes to rest gently right between Sasha's fluffy ears. Misha jumps up, completely flustered, and demands to know why she said that. Sasha just smiles and says she thinks they will make a good couple. Misha is overcome with a wave of blushing, stammering embarrassment. Her mind fills with fantasies of a happy, idyllic life with Tenma. Sasha explains that the match would be good for both Misha and the village. Beaming happily, Sasha promises to give her full support to make it happen. A silhouetted Sasha observes a flustered Tenma, noting his incredible skill. She remarks that despite his abilities, his poor social skills make him vulnerable. For a boy like him, she believes this small, quiet village is the perfect place. She thinks it would be better for him to start his journey from here. The quiet patter of small, bare feet echoes on the wooden floor. Little Malin peeks around a doorframe, calling out to her sister, Misha. With wide, innocent eyes, she asks if her big brother Tenma is back yet. As the sun sets, Tenma moves purposefully through the deepening shadows of the forest. He crouches in the undergrowth, his hooded figure blending into the darkness. Peeking from behind a tree, he nervously bites his gloved thumb. He discovers the smoldering ruins of the merchant's camp, overrun by celebrating goblins. His eyes widen in sheer horror at the devastating scene before him. He sees the merchant's skeleton propped gruesomely against a tree, a grim trophy. Pinned nearby is a heartbreaking sketch of the merchant and his beloved family. Watching the goblins dance, his expression hardens into one of cold, silent fury. The raucous sounds of the goblin party echo from their makeshift palisade. His hand instinctively tightens around the hilt of his dagger, ready for vengeance. His face is a mask of grim determination, his teeth clenched in anger. He stops himself, realizing he was about to let his emotions take over. He forces himself to calm down, recalling the breathing exercises from his old life. A memory of his past self counting down to manage stress flashes in his mind. His composure regained, he clenches his fist, ready to execute his real plan. He surveys the camp, noting the layout and the nearby cliff face. He pulls a specially prepared bottle of a potent concoction from his cloak. With a powerful, practiced motion, he hurls the bottle toward the camp. It shatters against a rock, releasing its contents in a fine spray. The goblins are startled by the sudden crash, their faces filled with alarm. The powerful, intoxicating scent of the mixture spreads rapidly through the air. One goblin squats down, curiously sniffing the strange liquid spilled on the ground. Another licks the air, its face contorting in pure, overwhelming ecstasy. Tenma runs along the fence, knowing the mixture will render the goblins helpless. A goblin holds the bottle's remains to the moon, drunk on the aroma alone. On a high cliff, a pack of predators catches the alluring scent on the wind. They leap from the darkness, a silent, deadly force descending upon the camp. The pack of massive silver wolves crashes into the clearing, their fangs bared. The goblins screech in terror as the unexpected hunters appear in their midst. Tenma whispers that the silver wolves have arrived, his plan unfolding perfectly. A brutal massacre begins as the wolves tear through the disoriented goblin horde. He watches the carnage, sweat beading on his face, both horrified and awestruck. The goblin celebration turns to chaos as they are mercilessly slaughtered. A blood-spattered wolf sinks its teeth into its victim, its eyes cold and feral. The alpha of the pack lets out a triumphant howl that echoes through the night. One wolf playfully tosses a goblin corpse, the battle already decided. The wolf pins its victim to the ground with a massive, blood-stained paw. As the pack departs, Tenma is moved to tears by their sheer power. At a nearby cave, Zlatan waits, having heard the sounds of battle fade. He emerges into the clearing, wondering aloud if the threat has been eliminated. He sees Tenma waiting for him at the mouth of the cave. Zlatan raises his twin axes, his expression grim and resolute. He tightens the wrappings on his hands, preparing himself for the next fight. He tells Tenma not to take this personally. He is only following orders. Tenma calmly summons his room, a door materializing out of thin air. He bursts into the pocket dimension, shouting to Gale that it's an emergency. Gale calmly tells him to settle down and report the situation in an orderly fashion. Tenma gestures frantically, trying to convey the chaos he just escaped. Gale puffs on a pipe, appearing wise and completely unfazed by the news. Tenma clasps his hands together, begging his companion to understand the danger. Gale's composure suddenly shatters, sweating and panicking that this is very bad. The AI comically splits into two identical, hysterically panicked versions of itself. Tenma tries to get Gale's attention, pointing toward their mission whiteboard. The first objective was to find the merchant Solon, hopefully still alive. Tenma reports that the secondary threat, the goblins, has been completely wiped out. Gale thoughtfully taps a pen, agreeing with the updated assessment of the situation. The AI decisively crosses the completed objectives off the mission list. But Gale notes with a snap of its pen, a new problem has emerged. The silver wolves were left unharmed, a dangerous miscalculation in their plan. Tenma sits on the couch, adding another complication to their growing list. He admits that Zlatan was far more capable and formidable than he had anticipated. He smiles hopefully, believing he can still reason with the big man. Gale smacks him with a cushion, shouting that he is being far too naive. The AI asks if he truly believes he can talk his way out of this. A shadowy Gale explains that Zlatan is a cunning opponent, not a simple brute. Tenma looks up at the intimidating figure, confused by the AI's sudden shift. Gale outlines Zlatan's character, astute, self-controlled, and ruthlessly loyal. Tenma realizes Gale is right, a bead of sweat running down his temple. He clenches his fists, declaring that he truly does not want to fight Zlatan. He looks down, lost and unsure, wondering what he should do now. Gale lets out a soft sigh, its demeanor softening at Tenma's distress. The AI stands on the table, announcing that it has a new plan. Holding two pig-shaped crackers, Gale explains Zlatan's loyalty is his greatest weakness. Tenma looks up, his eyes wide with surprise and a glimmer of hope. The scene shifts to the quiet, rustic home of Ranga's family in the village. Ranga stands guard with a spear outside the small, wooden bathhouse. Inside, Misha helps her little sister Maylin, telling her to raise her arms. Misha notes how much Maylin loves the cat-shaped soap that Tenma gave her. Maylin beams, hugging the soap, and exclaims that she loves it very much. Misha looks on, a thoughtful and slightly surprised expression on her face. She asks Maylin if she really wants Tenma to stay in the village forever. Maylin puffs out her cheeks and folds her arms, giving a definitive grunt of agreement. Misha is surprised by her sister's resolve, murmuring that this is troubling. Maylin sagely explains that Tenma must have had people who liked him before. Misha gently soaps her sister's back, her mind lost in thought. Maylin continues that it wouldn't be right for them to monopolize his kindness. She would be happy, she says, if he just came back to visit sometimes. Misha is stunned in his silence, the soap slipping from her hand with a splash. Ranga calls from outside, reminding them to use the precious soap sparingly. Misha meekly responds, clutching the soap to her chest, her cheeks flushed. She thinks to herself that her little sister has become so mature. She reflects on how Tenma always acts with the feelings of others in mind. She looks down, suddenly ashamed of her own childish dream of simply running away. Little Maylin looks up at her older sister, Misha, with innocent curiosity. Misha confirms her sister's thought, wrapping a fresh towel around the small girl. Suddenly, Maylin points, exclaiming that someone is watching them from outside. Misha's face instantly transforms, her expression hardening into a fierce scowl. An angry boot stomps down hard on the dirt just outside their home. Ranga storms into view, staff held ready, demanding to know who dares spy on them. His face is a mask of pure alarm and protective fury. He discovers the intruders are just a playful pyramid of goats. One of the kids lets out a cheerful, completely innocent bleat. Ranga's anger drains away, replaced by weary relief at the false alarm. Misha asks why he is home so early, as Maylin points out the climbing goats. Maylin covers her mouth, trying to suppress a fit of giggles. The goats playfully swarm the flustered Ranga, turning him into a climbing post. At the hilarious sight, both Misha and Maylin burst into joyous laughter. As the laughter fades, Misha's expression becomes quiet and thoughtful. She gazes at the distant mountains, wondering aloud what Tenma is doing. The vast, empty landscape offers no comfort or answers to her question. Miles away, a cornered Tenma faces the imposing, axe-wielding Zlatan. Tenma pants heavily, sweat beading on his face from the intense confrontation. Zlatan becomes a dark silhouette as he raises his axes to strike. A thunderous crash echoes as the axes slam into the ground. Zlatan stands in a cloud of dust, his back turned to the viewer. Tenma is revealed to be perched high in a tree, having dodged the blow. He catches his breath, clutching a hatchet he managed to snatch. His hand tightens around the weapon's handle, his knuckles turning white. The scene flashes back to the previous night, lit by a crackling campfire. Tenma recalls running through the woods, reviewing Gale's plan in his mind. The plan hinged on warning Zlatan that the village was doomed without help. The instructions were to appeal directly to Zlatan's loyalty to the chief. Tenma had felt confident, armed with the plan and his own determination. He had put the binder of notes away, ready to begin the mission. In the present, he calls out to Zlatan, who stands with his back turned. He reports that the goblins are gone, and he has a message about the chief. He calls out again when Zlatan doesn't move, a hopeful look on his face. A sudden, sharp glint of light makes his eyes widen in shock. He leaps back just as an axe slams into the ground where he stood. Zlatan charges past, swinging his other axe in a furious, silent assault. The two of them scramble down a steep, rocky hill, the chase beginning. Tenma realizes with dawning horror that Gale's prediction has completely failed. In that case, he thinks, planting his foot to change his strategy. He ducks under a thrown hatchet that flies past his head. In a fluid motion, he catches the spinning weapon out of the air. He hurls it back, but strikes a tree root harmlessly. The dense forest, he realizes, gives him no room to aim or swing. A flash of light from the side warns him of another attack. He leaps over an axe that smashes the ground right under his feet. Zlatan looms over him, a terrifying and relentless opponent. The hulking man raises his axe once more, his face a grim mask. Tenma flees between the massive trees, Zlatan's huge form in pursuit. He gasps for air, his lungs burning from the unrelenting chase. He understands Zlatan is hurting him where his throwing knives are useless. Watching his pursuer, he knows Zlatan is completely serious about this fight. He pants, wondering how many hours this desperate battle has been raging. Suddenly, his mental map of the area goes blank, Zlatan's presence gone. He questions how the man could vanish when he was just there. A massive shadow of an axe falls over him from directly above. He dodges sideways, giving a quick thumbs up to his own sharp reflexes. A wave of terror washes over him as he realizes how close he was. Small pebbles scatter, showing the force of the attack he just avoided. He realizes his stone-flicking attacks are having no effect on Zlatan. The big man leaps at him again, a blur of muscle and steel. A sudden worry strikes Tenma. Something must be happening back at the village. He knows he can't save them without getting past Zlatan first. A memory of his past life surfaces, a condescending boss dismissing his worries. He recalls the shame of quitting and wondering how to apologize for failing. His old, defeated self stares at the silhouette of his new, determined one. The young, resolute face of his reincarnated self stares back from the light. Back in the present, he gasps, realizing Zlatan has vanished once more. A glint of light from his left warns him of another surprise attack. Therefore, he thinks, planting his foot firmly to make his stand. He dodges another of Zlatan's powerful, leaping axe strikes. Zlatan charges forward, a thunderous and seemingly unstoppable force. His axes are suddenly knocked from his hands, smoking from the impact. Tenma stands his ground as the disarmed Zlatan stumbles to a halt. He states with fierce resolve that he refuses to give up on Zlatan. A single drop of water falls from a leaf, signaling a change. Rain begins to fall, soaking the two combatants in the silent forest. Zlatan tells Tenma his chance to win was lost the moment he entered. He declares that Tenma will not be leaving this forest in one piece. He throws a powerful punch, intending to end the fight decisively. The impact creates a massive explosion of dirt and debris in the distance. Both fighters are thrown back by the shockwave, panting for breath. Tenma winces in pain, clutching his bandaged and re-injured arm. Zlatan stumbles, dizzy and disoriented from the unexpected force. Tenma continues his retreat, clutching his wounded arm. He realizes he cannot fight a grizzly bear of a man with just his fists. A pair of horned rabbits watch him run into a narrow, rocky ravine. The rabbits look on with wide, comically shocked expressions. Zlatan knows a giant bear is the apex predator in a world without guns. A series of explosions suddenly tears up the ground behind him. He is thrown forward by the blasts, landing hard in the ravine. He realizes Tenma has far greater combat power than he first appeared. Tenma unleashes a storm of throwing knives, a deadly whirlwind of steel. Zlatan recognizes that Tenma is the sharpest man he has ever met. He is struck by the volley of blades, his body absorbing the blows. He sees Tenma holding a handful of impossibly identical, perfect stones. He understands Tenma is an enigma, far older and wiser than he looks. But his deep compassion, Zlatan realizes, is his one fatal weakness. He clenches his fist, knowing if he can exploit that weakness, he can win. Tenma counts on his fingers, his mental training continuing even now. Hidden behind a massive tree, Tenma counts down the seconds before he must act. His eyes are wide with focus, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. He knows Zlatan will be upon him soon, but he refuses to give up on him. Remembering the fallen merchant Solon, he grips his sword, vowing to end it now. A sudden noise startles birds from their perch, alerting the hulking Zlatan below. A sharp sound effect slices through the panel, signaling the beginning of the action. Tenma explodes from his cover, launching himself from the safety of the gnarled roots. He roars, unleashing the weight of not just 15, but 48 years of training. He yells for Zlatan to take this, as he hurls his ultimate attack. A sword flies through the narrow space between two dark tree trunks. Zlatan stands his ground in the ravine, watching the blade speed towards him. The bear man is a picture of readiness, his axes held tight, sunglasses hiding his eyes. With a powerful, blurring motion, he reaches out and snatches the blade from the air. He recognizes Solon's sword, surprised that he managed to catch the feint. Zlatan realizes he has been outplayed. Tenma intentionally made him miss the point. He looks down at the blade, a quiet sound effect marking his moment of clarity. A memory of Solon happily playing with his children flashes through his mind. Holding the merchant's sword, Zlatan's face is now a mask of grim understanding. A single tear falls from his cheek, landing on the flat of the cold steel. The air is split by the sound of his decisive, sudden action. His own axes fall to the forest floor with a heavy thud, his fight abandoned. He shouts that he has lost and demands to hear Tenma's plan. High above, Tenma looks toward the sky, a visible wave of relief washing over him. A small, confident smile touches his lips. His gambit has paid off. In a sterile corporate afterlife, a voice bellows for Section Chief Hagen. The pig-faced executive, Hayes, angrily accuses Hagen of orchestrating his transfer. Hagen turns his head slowly, his monocle gleaming, his expression unbothered. He calmly notes that developing new clients is a very important and demanding role. Hayes fumes that forcing a top earner like him to do grunt work is a huge loss. The disgraced executive trudges away with his box as Hagen watches him depart. Hagen asks about next term's profits, but Hayes retorts he'll just have to wait. Hagen dons a face mask, wondering about the state of his department. He muses that their business is not about quick profits, for their clients are immortal. He recalls an old boss yelling that grabbing at money is a bad look. He believes their true profits are maximized through long-term, mutually beneficial relationships. He knows that building these lasting partnerships is the true path to success. Hayes clicks his tongue in annoyance, telling Hagen not to mind him. Hagen thinks that dealing with foolish superiors is, unofficially, part of his job. The box of Hayes' belongings falls to the floor with a loud thud. Hayes kicks his spilled belongings in a fit of rage as Hagen observes silently. Hagen walks alone down the stark white corridor, his mind on other matters. He quietly wonders about the true meaning behind Tenma's summons to that world. Anna appears behind him, calling out to her section chief with urgency. She looks panicked as Hagen asks her what's wrong, another employee looking on. She explains that a direct inquiry has arrived from the client of Tenma's world. Her tablet displays an incoming call from Goddess Terra, asking to be connected. Anna panics, crying out for Hagen, completely unsure of what she should do. Hagen is shocked. A direct inquiry from Client God is completely unheard of. He stares at the tablet, his expression grim and concerned. Anna nervously explains she heard about the situation from the service desk. She says the final directive from Hayes got passed around to the chief's desk. Hagen grabs his briefcase, insisting they must respond immediately. Anna nervously agrees. He takes a deep, steadying breath, preparing for the monumental call. He lets out a quiet sigh, composing himself for the divine confrontation. His finger moves with purpose, pressing the button to accept the call. A holographic icon of the goddess materializes in the air before them. The goddess's voice echoes that she has been kept waiting for quite some time. Both Hagen and Anna stammer apologies, bowing their heads in deep reverence. The goddess says it's fine, since they sent a very good reincarnator. Hagen asks why the goddess is contacting them directly, bypassing her usual agents. The divine voice declares that it wishes to handle the rest of this directly. A wave of terror washes over Anna and Hagen at the goddess's words. In an instant, they are transported to a small platform floating in a sea of clouds. Anna cries out for her section chief, who sternly tells her to calm down. They're shaken by the sudden transport, wondering what is happening. A colossal shadow emerges from the swirling mists, a truly divine being. Hagen shields his eyes in disbelief, shouting, "What is that?" The great orca introduces itself as the god who guided Tenma, its name Gale. Hagen stares up, his composure shattered by the sheer scale of the being. He introduces himself and Anna, asking what business the god has with them. Gale has only one question. Why did they force Tenma into such a long tutorial? The massive orca god stares down, its gaze intense, awaiting their answer. Hagen looks down, sweat beading on his brow as he considers his words. He closes his eyes for a moment, accepting the weight of his failure. He declares that it was their mistake, and that he takes full responsibility. Anna panics, certain they are doomed for having angered such a fearsome god. The goddess's massive tail fin twitches slightly in the clouds. Suddenly, a booming, cavernous laugh erupts from Gale, echoing across the sky. Hagen is completely shocked by this unexpected reaction, a tick on his forehead. Anna lets out a terrified shriek, overwhelmed by the bizarre turn of events. Gale apologizes for the outburst, its laughter finally subsiding. A series of strange, melodic warbles emanates from the divine being. The otherworldly noises continue, a form of communication beyond their comprehension. The goddess's voice simply says no. Gale says it will take responsibility for anything, as it thought this might happen. Hagen is taken aback, stammering that this is not necessary. Gale clarifies that it has no intention of complaining, as the mistake worked out well. Anna is startled by the goddess's forgiving nature. She clutches her tablet, tears of immense relief welling in her eyes. Hagen states that it is for the goddess to judge, and he will not interfere. He asks if he may ask one final question, and the goddess agrees. He asks what relationship the great god has with the reincarnator, Tenma. A plushy Gale muses that its bond with Tenma is deeper than a partner, like family. The goddess Gale makes a stunning declaration. She and Tenma are brothers. Hagen and Anna are struck completely dumbfounded by this cosmic revelation. The plushy version of Gale chuckles to itself about Tenma being its brother. Gale emphasizes the point, adding that she is, of course, the older brother. Hagen's mind reels, unable to process the concept of the goddess being an older brother. He shouts, asking if this is the truth, while Anna covers her ears in shock. Anna gasps, the words echoing in her mind. Tenma and the orca god are brothers. Anna's mind reels, sweat beading on her brow as she questions this impossible reality. The cosmic revelation is too much. She feels faint as Hagen calls out in alarm. Under a dark sky, the forest echoes with the menacing growls of unseen predators. A silver wolf lunges, its powerful jaws clamping down hard onto Tenma's arm. Fangs sink deep into the wrapping, his own blood soaking the makeshift bandage. By the fire's dying light, the two are completely surrounded by the cunning wolf pack. With a powerful punch, Tenma sends one of the attacking wolves flying backward. The beast hits the ground hard, stunned by the boy's unexpected strength. He braces himself, unflinching, as another wolf lunges forward in a blur of fur. He recalls explaining his strategy. These wolves were not meant to be killed. Zlatan had listened to the boy's strange plan with a deep, weary skepticism. His plan was simple: drive them away, not with force, but with allure. The alpha wolf growls, its intelligent eyes assessing the strange human before it. Zlatan protects the precious decoy, fending off the snapping jaws of the pack. The big man watches as Tenma prepares to make his move amidst the chaos. He strains against the wolf's immense strength, feeling himself start to lose his footing. The wolf clamps down again, its powerful bite testing Tenma's absolute limit. Using its own momentum, he flips the beast cleanly over his shoulder. With a powerful throw, he sends the scented decoy bundle arcing through the air. The wolf tumbles helplessly, its eyes wide with shock at the sudden reversal. His expression is grim but determined. The plan is now in its final stage. The decoy plummets from the high cliff, the entire pack leaping after it. One wolf expertly catches the prize in midair, its jaws snapping it up. A great splash erupts from below as the pack hits the churning river. The successful hunter holds its prize, the objective of the pack now secured. The pack turns to its leader, who fell with them into the water. The alpha, drenched but unharmed, recognizes Tenma's power and acknowledges his gambit. It lets out a final, commanding howl, a signal to the rest of its pack. They watch in surprise as the wolf's aggressive demeanor suddenly seems to soften. The howl echoes through the ravine, a call of retreat, not aggression. The rest of the pack looks on, awaiting the final order from their leader. The tense standoff breaks as the wolves begin to turn and move away. They run past the two humans without a second glance, their conflict now over. With incredible agility, the pack scales the steep rock face, disappearing from sight. Down below, the river churns where the pack made its strategic retreat. The wolves swim powerfully downstream, leaving the territory behind as Tenma planned. From their vantage point, the two allies watch the successful end of the conflict. Their mission accomplished, they begin the long, weary walk back from the cliff. Zlatan confirms the wolves will live, and Tenma expresses his profound relief. The big man, filled with a newfound respect, raises his fist in solidarity. Tenma looks at the offered gesture, surprised by the sudden show of camaraderie. He meets Zlatan's fist with his own, sealing their unlikely alliance. In the darkness, two pairs of determined eyes seem to glow with purpose. Zlatan's eyes are filled with a hard-won resolve, his loyalty now shifted. The heavy wagon wheel rumbles onward, carrying them and their grim cargo. Together, they pull the fallen merchant's wagon, a somber journey back home. Tenma apologizes for the heavy load, but Zlatan simply says it's his job. A small, respectful smile touches Zlatan's lips as he glances at the boy. His expression turns grim as he thinks of the merchant Solin's ultimate fate. It seems their troubles are over, with only the journey home remaining. But Zlatan's somber expression suggests their problems are far from solved. He explains that returning to the village only means facing a mountain of problems. He lists the village's critical shortages, starting with water and salt. Tenma looks on, concerned, realizing the true depth of the village's crisis. With the merchant gone, their supply lines are severed, and fuel is scarce. The village's reckless growth has put it on a path to total collapse. Tenma is shocked by the grim prognosis. 5 years is a death sentence. Zlatan corrects his estimate with chilling certainty. They only have 3 years left. He states his assessment with grim confidence, based on his own observations. Tenma is left speechless, the shortened timeline far worse than he imagined. They continue their journey, the weight of the village's future on their shoulders. Tenma consults the binder, searching Gale's intricate plan for a possible solution. He outlines the possible, yet seemingly impossible, solutions to their water crisis. As he speaks, Tenma takes a sip of water, the precious resource itself. Zlatan explains that the tyrannical village elder would never allow such plans. Tenma realizes the elder's greed is the ultimate roadblock to any form of progress. The elder's power was built on controlling the well. He would never relinquish it. Though frustrated, Tenma refuses to give up, believing there must be a solution. That night, by the campfire, they begin to brainstorm a new, radical strategy. Tenma vents his frustration, feeling trapped by the elder and his loathsome son. Zlatan is torn, unable to betray the man who saved him as a child. As Zlatan quietly eats, Tenma watches, understanding the big man's inner conflict. He thinks of his own past, of being powerless, and understands Zlatan's position. He realizes neither pure logic nor brute force will solve this complex problem. He sits by the fire, lost in thought, contemplating the village's grim future. Zlatan looks down at his simple meal, his mind heavy with difficult choices. He admits he understands the elder's desire to protect the village he built. A radical idea sparks in Tenma's mind, a way to restructure power itself. Zlatan turns, his expression a mask of complete and utter confusion. Tenma worries he's gone off script, his idea not part of Gale's original plan. The gears are turning in Zlatan's mind as he processes the strange proposal. He recalls the dismissive, cynical bosses from his past life who crushed his ideas. But Zlatan, unlike his old bosses, approaches with curiosity, wanting to hear more. Tenma is stunned, completely unprepared for someone to actually listen to his idea. Zlatan insists on hearing the details, eager to understand the boy's plan. His plan guarantees the elder's status while delegating power to competent managers. Zlatan listens intently, the silhouette of his powerful frame hiding his expression. He accurately summarizes the plan, a separation of power, responsibility, and profit. He takes a thoughtful sip of tea, confirming he has understood the core concept. Tenma beams, overjoyed that his complex idea has been so perfectly understood. He praises Zlatan's clarity, offering him the simple, warm drink they share. Zlatan admits the idea is brilliant, a strategy that might actually work. He holds his cup, a single word signaling a final, massive obstacle. That wall is Eugerin, the elder's arrogant son, who stands in their way. Back in the village, life continues, unaware of the plot's unfolding. Little May walks through the village, a bouquet of flowers clutched in her hands. She hides, overhearing the hushed, menacing whispers of strange, frightening men. Her innocent eyes widen with pure terror as she realizes the danger. She turns and runs for home, screaming for her older sister in a panic. Just as Malin cheers Tenma's return, Misha is startled, sensing the impending crisis. Little May innocently asks her mother if she is wearing a wedding dress. Misha watches from afar, a shocked expression on her face as she thinks of Tenma. A lone-covered wagon travels down a long road under a vast, cloudy sky. Tenma cheerfully tells Zlatan that they will be arriving at the village very soon. Zlatan agrees, planning to report to the chief and propose Tenma's new ideas. Tenma looks on with a worried expression, hoping the villagers are all right. Zlatan reflects on the village's grim situation, believing their time was almost up. But because of Tenma, a glimmer of hope has appeared, and he thanks him. Tenma offers a small, gentle smile, accepting the hulking man's heartfelt gratitude. Zlatan knows Eugerin will oppose their plan, but Tenma suggests they will face it together. Both Tenma and Zlatan are suddenly startled, their attention drawn towards the village gate. A harsh voice commands them to halt, threatening to kill them if they move. A menacing, bald-headed guard glares down at them from the watchtower. Tenma asks who the man is, but Zlatan can only shake his head grimly. The heavy footsteps of several armed mercenaries approach them from the gate. A motley crew of hired thugs stands before them, blocking their path into the village. Tenma demands to know who they are and what has become of Ranga's guards. The leader's mouth curls into a cruel, knowing sneer. He recognizes the boy, confirming with a sneer that he must be Tenma. Tenma stares back, his expression hardening as he senses the immense danger. The mercenary leader orders them both to leave immediately, citing the chief's authority. Inside a house, Misha waits impatiently, thinking that Tenma is taking too long. A loud crash at the door startles her, and she calls out Tenma's name. Ranga stumbles through the doorway, his face pale, and Misha cries his name in shock. He expresses relief that it's her and not his wife, Sasha, as Misha looks on. Misha asks him about his duties, but he avoids her gaze, looking ashamed. In a dark, vertical panel, he confesses that he has been fired from his post. Misha now moves like a shadow through the village, climbing a tree near the wall. She carefully peeks over the wooden palisade, her expression tense and focused. She knows she must keep watch so that the new guards do not spot Tenma. The guard below lets out a yawn, thinking it would be terrible if he were found. Misha steels herself, knowing that she has to act for Tenma's sake. She crouches on the wall, preparing to make a daring leap to escape. She launches herself into the air in a graceful, athletic arc. The guard below turns, a question mark appearing as he senses a flash of movement. A small, fluffy white rabbit rustles loudly in the nearby bushes. Misha lands in a heap as the guard dismisses the noise as a simple horned rabbit. She quickly recovers, her foot stamping the ground as she sprints away. She races through the woods, desperate to reach Tenma and warn him of the takeover. Peeking from behind a tree, she sees Tenma and Zlatan have been driven back. She runs towards the clearing where she knows they will have to leave their wagon. Tenma and Zlatan rest, Zlatan lamenting that they were unexpectedly forced to retreat. A voice calls out his name, and Tenma turns startled to see who it is. Misha arrives, panting for breath, and expresses her relief that they are both safe. She clutches her chest, looking exhausted and dirty, trying to explain the situation. She finally blurts out that the village is in a state of crisis. Zlatan listens by the fire, his expression grim as he realizes what has happened. She explains that the adventurers were hired by Ugerin and are running amok. Misha looks down at her hands, her face a mask of frustration and worry. She recounts how the desperate villagers went to the chief's house to protest. The villagers plead at the door, explaining they have no firewood and need help. The door is blocked by an intimidating, muscular beastkin who looks down on them. Ugerin appears, sneering that there is no firewood to spare for the poor. The villagers demand to see the chief, but Ugerin claims his father is too sick. Inside, he and the mercenaries feast, dismissing the villagers by the chief's order. The villagers are left outside, their faces a picture of utter despair. Tenma listens to her story in silence, his expression completely unreadable. Misha explains that Ranga and the others were sent on a logging mission. Zlatan is in disbelief that the village chief would order such a thing. He closes his eyes, his face etched with worry, stating that this is very bad. He knows that such reckless deforestation will upset the forest's delicate ecosystem. Tenma sits across from him, quietly agreeing with his grim assessment. Zlatan covers his face in his hands, despairing for the chief's well-being. The embers from the fire dance in the air before Tenma's cold, steady gaze. The scene shifts to the oppressive, modern architecture of Tenma's past life. He recalls overhearing a man boast of getting a job through his father's connections. He remembers his colleagues complaining about the unfairness of the system. A memory of a yellow sign indicating that the restroom is being cleaned. He recalls being praised by a female co-worker for his diligent, careful work. She had smiled, saying that even if it's frustrating, a job is a job. a painful memory of being told he was too old for part-time work. Zlatan is stunned, feeling the palpable anger radiating from the young boy. Tenma's face is a mask of pure rage as he seethes about the injustice. Zlatan stares at Tenma, shocked by the sudden, intense display of fury. Misha looks at Tenma with concern, holding a warm cup in her hands. The campfire roars, its flickering flames reflecting the fire in Tenma's soul. The burning logs in the stone hearth crackle and pop with intensity. Elsewhere, Eugeren's contact tells him that the fate of the villagers is irrelevant. The man smirks, declaring that the village now belongs to its rightful new owner. The mastermind Shamrock agrees, saying it will be a mutually beneficial arrangement. Eugeren is told to thoroughly crush anyone who dares to interfere with their deal. Shamrock watches the exchange with a cold, confident smile. Eugeren's contact encourages him, promising that he will do what needs to be done. Eugeren, pouring a glass of wine, asks why he should bother being so cautious. He is told it's a necessary precaution to secure a large sum of money. Eugeren smiles, boasting that his father will thank him for selling him out. A brief flashback shows the elder, Belen, moaning weakly in his sickbed. On his nightstand sits medicine and a half-eaten piece of bread. One of the mercenaries watches Eugeren's drunken boasting with a disapproving glare. Eugeren notices his expression and asks him why he's making such a face. He lets out a massive, drunken yawn, barely covering his mouth. He slurs that his father is just sick, so it's not a big deal. A hooded figure at the table speaks, addressing Eugeren directly. Shamrock notes that Zlatan and the boy have returned far too quickly. Eugeren's drunken arrogance evaporates, replaced by a look of sober panic. The mercenary leader curses, realizing his plans have been thrown into disarray. In another place, a frantic voice cries out that they are far too late. Atop a waterfall, the AI Gale fumes, its small form trembling with anger. It screams Tenma's name into the void, its agitation causing reality to shimmer. Gale's colossal orca form breaches the water, roaring Tenma's name with divine fury. The small, dolphin-like AI paced anxiously, its flippers clasped in distress. With intense focus, it flipped through a binder containing their master plan. The notes detailed their strategy to defeat the corrupt elder and his son. Gale's worried eyes scanned the maps, every detail a source of anxiety. It knew the elder was competent but unforgivably soft on his loathsome son, Eugeren. The AI set down its drink, its mind too consumed with strategy for rest. It feared Eugeren was so treacherous he would eventually betray even his own father. Gale knew Tenma's kind heart couldn't grasp the depths of Eugeren's vileness. The AI admitted to itself that it was worrying far too much about everything. A dark, tempting thought crossed its mind. Perhaps it was time for that. It imagined its true, terrifying form descending upon the world in righteous fury. Startled by its own violent fantasy, Gale snapped back to reality with a jolt. It frantically reminded itself that direct intervention was strictly forbidden. A god's appearance would irrevocably alter civilization for hundreds of years. Feeling helpless, it wondered what it could possibly do within the cosmic rules. After a moment's hesitation, a new, firm resolve began to take shape. It decided its worry was natural. After all, it was concerned for its brother. With a quiet determination, Gale turned away, ready to place its trust in Tenma. It resolved to act like a true older brother and believe in him. It sighed, thinking what a troublesome little brother Tenma could be. A moment of silence followed as it contemplated its decision, but a final, dark thought still lingered beneath its newfound resolve. If anything happened to Tenma, it would unleash its full, terrible power. The village map showed a small, vulnerable settlement surrounded by woods. From above, the village looked isolated, a lone bastion in the wilderness. The elder had grimly predicted that this path would lead to their ruin. At the gate, Ranga was told it was useless. They would not be allowed inside. A bald mercenary watched the standoff from a window, casually drinking. A pig-faced thug snarled at Tenma's group, telling them to get lost. He shoved Tenma hard, sending the boys staggering backward from the force. The mercenaries pushed Ranga's faction back, slamming the village gates shut. Yudrin watched from the sidelines, a smug grin on his face as he drank. Tenma seethed, clenching his fist as he muttered Yudrin's name with contempt. Ranga placed a heavy, restraining hand on Tenma's shoulder, calling his name. The proud wolfman looked up, his expression hardening with grim resolve. Inside, the villagers, including women and children, waited anxiously. May's family worried aloud about whether Tenma would be okay in the fight. Tenma stood alone for a moment, bowing his head in quiet determination. The camera pans over the vast, empty landscape outside the village walls. A simple, rustic house stands alone, home to Ranga and his family. Misha adjusted her gloves as her sister, Sasha, approached with a basket. "I'm going to help Tenma," Misha declared with fierce determination. Sasha quickly called out, asking her younger sister to wait a moment. She leaned in close, whispering something urgent and secret into Misha's ear. Misha's eyes widened in shock as Sasha told her to be careful. Clutching the bundle Sasha gave her, Misha nodded, her face set. She ran off towards the conflict, leaving Sasha to watch with a worried heart. The sky above was a blank canvas, indifferent to the drama below. Tenma and Zlatan arrived back at the gate with a covered wagon. A close-up on Tenma's worn boots showed him standing his ground. Yudrin's men yelled at them, calling them persistent and annoying. Tenma and the hulking Zlatan stood together, a silent, formidable pair. A sharp shout cut through the tense air, capturing everyone's attention. Ranga and his logging crew arrived, demanding to know what was happening. He spotted his friends, calling out to Tenma and Zlatan in surprise. A wide, toothy grin of pure relief spread across Ranga's face. "I'm glad you're safe," he said, the sentiment shared by his comrades. The mercenary leader, Ketz, stepped forward to confront the reunited group. "So it's you," Ketz said, his gaze cold and calculating. The crowd accused them of being washed-up adventurers who stole their jobs. Zlatan's eyes fell on the broken wagon, recognizing it as the merchant Solon's. Yudrin swaggered forward, mocking Ranga for failing such a simple task. Ranga roared back, telling the elder's son he had no such authority. "I wonder about that," Yudrin sneered, pulling out a rolled parchment. He declared himself the acting chief, brandishing the document with his father's signature. Ranga and his men were stunned into silence by this audacious power grab. The mercenaries jeered, telling Ranga's faction to bring on the fight. From the watchtower, Yudrin drank as his terrified family looked on. He savored the wine, his face a mask of smug satisfaction. In a final act of defiance, Ranga hurled his empty bottle to the ground. The bottle shattered, the sharp sound signaling the start of the brawl. With a collective war cry, Ranga and his men charged into the fray. Zlatan held Tenma back, ordering him not to get involved in the fight. Tenma protested, terrified that Ranga and the others would be seriously hurt. Ranga fought like a beast, landing a powerful punch on a mercenary's jaw. Zlatan watched the chaos, sweat beading on his brow as the villagers fought. Yudrin laughed from his perch, declaring how delicious the wine tasted. He dismissed the chaos below as a foolish spectacle put on by his idiot son. Suddenly, the elder, Bellin, stormed up behind him in the watchtower. "What do you think you're doing?" Bellin screamed, his face purple with rage. He bellowed down at the brawlers, his voice shaking with uncontrolled fury. He then shocked everyone by declaring that he, the chief, permitted the violence. The sound of his declaration echoed, stunning the combatants below. Yudrin turned to his father, his face a mask of utter confusion. The battle erupted with renewed ferocity as the mercenaries surged forward. Zlatan looked up at the tower, his face a picture of exhausted disbelief. He saw the elder and Yudrin looking down at the escalating brawl. But now, Misha held a blade to the elder's throat. Yudrin cried out for his father. "This is bad." Yudrin shrieked, realizing his pathetic coup was falling apart. Zlatan let out a long, weary sigh, overwhelmed by the turn of events. Tenma, however, watched the chaos with a calm, almost imperceptible smile. The camera pans out, showing the distant, peaceful mountains. Back at the gate, the villagers stared up at the tower, speechless. Misha watched the intense brawl from her position next to the elder. The villagers were outnumbered, but the 6 adventurers were pushing them back. One of the mercenaries watched Tenma, puzzled by his inaction. He wondered why the 2 strongest fighters were holding back from the fight. Yudrin looked down, his face pale as he watched the battle rage on. The elder, Belen, peered nervously over the edge of the watchtower wall. He screamed down at Yudrin, demanding to know what he had done. Tenma's eyes widened in horrified realization. The elder never gave this order. The elder, Belen, sees, understanding his son's treachery and forming a new plan. Yudrin collapses to the ground, shrieking in pure, unadulterated terror. Tenma watches as Belen turns to his men, about to issue a shocking command. With his hands to his face, Tenma watches Belen order the capture of his own son. The boy can only stare, his mind reeling from the sudden turn of events. From a watchtower, the bald mercenary Ketz observes the chaos with cold impatience. He shouts down to his men, urging them to hurry up and finish the job. Yudrin struggles uselessly as the mercenaries grab him, hauling him to his feet. They begin hustling their captive towards a waiting wagon, a clear escape in progress. The wolfman Ranga narrows his eyes, realizing this is a staged getaway. Tenma declares he won't let them escape, a small stone glowing with power in his palm. With a confident thumbs up, he unleashes a blast that sends Yudrin flying. Ranga rushes to the fallen Yudrin, who whines in pain from the unexpected attack. He stares at Tenma, stunned by the impossible speed and power of the boy's attack. Ranga begins to run, telling Tenma to capture Yudrin, but he stops dead in his tracks. The mercenary leader Ketz has descended, drawing his long sword with a menacing rasp. Both Ranga and Tenma are frozen in shock by the mercenary's sudden appearance. Ketz levels his blade, offering them a simple, brutal choice: join him or die. Ranga is aghast, questioning Ketz's honor for threatening an unarmed boy with a sword. He points out the crowd of onlookers, but Ketz sneers that he doesn't care. Ketz grinds a shard under his boot, showing his utter contempt for their pleas. Ranga insists that, no matter what, they must retrieve the fallen contract scroll. Tenma's ear twitches as he catches the faintest sound of swift movement nearby. He cries out, realizing his mistake as a cloaked figure dashes past him. The speedy blonde mercenary lunges for the scroll, her hand outstretched to snatch it. A triumphant smirk crosses her face as victory seems just within her grasp. But the scroll is suddenly plucked from the air just before her fingers touch it. She skids to a halt, her momentum carrying her past the now empty spot. Whirling around in disbelief, she demands to know who dared to interfere. A mysterious, silhouetted figure with fox ears stands before her, holding the document. It is Misha, panting from her dash but clutching the scroll with fierce determination. With the mercenary reflected in her eye, she vows that they will protect their home. The blonde mercenary seethes with rage, her words catching in her throat. She cries out, calling her rival a vixen as she is swiftly knocked aside. Misha sprints away with the captured scroll, leaving her opponent in the dust. Her feet pound the earth, kicking up dust with every determined stride. With fierce determination, she races through the panicked crowd, clutching her prize. The village gate is a scene of chaos, the conflict far from over. Ranga cheers for Misha's success, while the mercenary leader looks on grimly. A villager's horrified gasp draws all eyes towards the watchtower above. The elder gloats, having captured Sasha and May, turning the tide with hostages. Later, in the quiet solitude of a simple barn, the allies gather. Sasha examines the document, declaring that it is undoubtedly a forgery. She confirms to a stunned Zlatan that the handwriting is not the chief's. They sit together, piecing together the events that led to this disaster. Zlatan clenches his fists in frustration, wondering how things went so wrong. Tima explains that Eugerin seized power after the chief mysteriously vanished. The true village chief lies unconscious, a victim of his son's treachery. Zlatan realizes that the arrival of the thugs was Eugerin's next move. Sasha recounts how the mercenaries arrived swiftly from the town of Ronda. The name Ronda shocks Zlatan, who now understands the scope of the plot. Misha turns to her sister, asking about the chief's surprisingly stable condition. Sasha explains she used the remaining half of the elixir to save him. Zlatan shouts in disbelief, learning Misha delivered the priceless elixir to him. Ranga proudly tells Zlatan the heirloom story, much to Tima's embarrassment. Tima can only offer a weak, awkward smile in response. Ranga confidently states they'll be fine with the forged contract and the chief. Zlatan voices his deep concern over the mercenaries' hire by Eugerin. A grim silence falls as they consider the implications of his words. Tinma, holding his pup, voices the darker possibility they are all dreading. In other words, the game being played is far more complex. In a tavern, a mercenary confirms his understanding of their ruthless plan. One thug reacts with shock, while another tells him not to ask again. Kitz coldly states they can replace the villagers, even if it means slaughter. Meanwhile, their foolish puppet Eugerin is played, a pawn in their deadly game. In a tavern, the mastermind Shamrock states the old boss's plans were small and better suited for employees. Eugerin's portly contact sweats nervously as he clutches his losing hand of cards. A bald man notes the village's resource shortage, but the contact smugly dismisses the problem. Shamrock laughs, revealing the plan to sell settlement rights, a far more profitable venture. The contact gasps, realizing he's been completely outmaneuvered as Shamrock shows his winning card. The bald man grunts in satisfaction, observing that his new, terrified subordinate took the bait. Shamrock holds up a simple 4 of hearts, beginning to explain the new arrangement. He leans in, menacingly stating that things will be peaceful without any troublemakers around. Shamrock stands, declaring that once the current residents are gone, he will get everything. His hand rests near his sheathed knife as he speaks of the power he wields. A portrait of a nobleman hangs on the wall, a symbol of established authority. Shamrock gestures to it, explaining that authority is a very effective tool to use. His new, intimidated crew watches with a mixture of fear and greedy excitement. 2 glasses clink together in a toast, sealing their dark and treacherous new alliance. In an ethereal bar, Anna asks her boss, Hagen, what he discussed with the goddess. Hagen replies that Tima's actions have been predictable, asking if she wants to know something. Anna complains that nothing is happening, frustrated by Tima's inaction despite his immense power. Hagen poses a question. What would she do in Tima's position with all his assets? She imagines herself with a minigun, ready to make the company pay and replace the board. Hagen smiles gently, asking why she doesn't just go on a rampage like that. His expression then turns serious as he prepares to explain the consequences. He begins his lesson, addressing Anna directly with a somber tone. Overwhelming strength, he explains, is just like a potent, dangerous medicine. He says that if she rampaged, perceptions of her would change, altering Tima's view of her. Anna looks shocked, realizing the deep personal consequences of using such power recklessly. She quietly agrees, understanding the delicate balance she must maintain. Hagen continues, stating that a cure is meaningless if the patient dies from it. He frames Tenma as the world's medicine, explaining why he cannot use his power carelessly. Anna listens intently, her expression serious as she absorbs the profound lesson. She looks down, contemplating the immense burden that Tenma must carry. Over a snowy cityscape, a question hangs in the air. Is power meaningless then? Under the full moon, Two figures decide to let Ketz and the chief escape tonight. A group of armed villagers is led into a dark ravine, a terrible decision being made. Tenma lights the path with a lantern, his expression resolute as Zlatan looms protectively behind. Yujin smugly asks if they know about the recent monster appearances. From the darkness, he declares they will become food for the monsters. Ranga realizes it is an ambush, raising his axe protectively. The mercenaries rush forward, but their leader tells them to wait. The man is struck, warning his comrades about Tenma's strange abilities. The lantern shatters violently on the ground, extinguishing all light. In the darkness, the confused mercenaries urge each other to focus. Unseen projectiles strike the men, one telling his panicked comrade to calm down. More thugs fall to the ground as their torches are extinguished. Yujin screams in terror, turning to flee the unseen assault. Ketz looks up, seeing Tenma's dark silhouette standing above him. Tenma clenches his fist, thinking Ketz is a damn brat. Ranga observes that Tenma's anti-personnel skills are surprisingly good. He realizes Tenma had held back to avoid hurting him during training. Tenma calmly confirms that Ranga's assessment of him is correct. Misha draws her blade, noting that no villagers are watching them. Ketz and his bald subordinate stand ready, their expressions grim. The hulking beastkin mercenary prepares to attack with his war hammer. The blonde mercenary clutches a pouch, her expression determined. Yujin sits terrified on the ground amidst the chaotic battle. The mercenaries face Tenma's imposing silhouette, ready for a fight. Yujin impatiently tells them to finish it, but is told to be quiet. Ketz observes that the brat is absurdly, ridiculously strong. He taps the ash from his pipe, signaling his intent to fight. With a sharp sound, Ketz swiftly draws his sword. Ketz stands ready to fight, facing the beastkin's imposing figure. Ketz gives the order to begin their serpent attack formation. The mercenaries leap into the air, executing a coordinated attack. Ranga declares that he will be the one to fight Ketz. Ketz smirks, boasting they have never lost using this strategy. Ranga's ears twitch, sensing something is amiss with the attack. A sudden impact strikes Ketz squarely on the head. He realizes it was a direct hit, a feint that leaves him vulnerable. He thinks Tenma is using poison, but that is not the case. He realizes with shock that the brat has completely broken through. The ground beneath the beastkin's feet begins to crack apart. Tenma stops the massive hammer with a single hand, shattering the earth. The other mercenaries can only stare in utter, wide-eyed disbelief. Tenma flicks his fingers, preparing his powerful counterattack. He delivers a single, devastating punch to the beastkin's stomach. The impact sends the massive beastkin flying backwards through the air. Ranga, locked in combat with Ketz, calls out Tenma's name. Tenma stands over his foe as Yujin whimpers in fear. The terrified mercenaries wonder what he is, telling him not to falter. Ketz orders his subordinate to throw the fong without hesitation. She leaps through the air, hurling the large dagger forward. The dagger flies true, embedding itself deep within Tenma's shoulder. The mercenaries cheer, celebrating what they believe is a direct hit. Tenma looks down at the blade in his shoulder, confused. A system message confirms his poison resistance nullified the attack. He pulls the dagger from his shoulder with a single motion. He casually confirms to the shocked thugs it had no effect. He examines the bloodied, poisoned blade with a slight smile. He is grateful for the resilience gained during his 15-year ordeal. The mercenaries and Ranga stare, completely stunned by this development. Ketz realizes with terror that Tenma is a monster they cannot defeat. Tenma turns his head slightly, his expression calm and questioning. The standoff continues under the moonlight, the two groups squared off. Ranga clutches his throat, beginning to feel the poison's effects. Ketz sweats, watching his final, desperate plan unfold. Ketz coolly announces that his next attack is smoke. A villager covers her face as the acrid smoke spreads. A mercenary quickly dons a gas mask to protect himself. Ketz reveals the small pouch that is the source of the smoke. The elder collapses against a tree as another villager falls nearby. Tenma looks on, realizing with horror what the smoke is. Ketz and his partner stand unaffected, protected by their gas masks. Ketz explains the immense power contained within the small pouch. A villager observes the chaos, noting that it looks very bad. Tenma claps his gloved hands together, preparing his next move. Tenma, sweating, realizes what he must do to counter this. Ketz smirks, pleased that Tenma has figured out his deadly plan. A montage shows the careful preparation of the complex poison. They are shown using the same poison to fell a massive dragon. A villager groans, collapsing face first onto the ground. The fallen man asks the masked figure if he plans to kill them. Yujirin feigns ignorance, asking what the man is talking about. The poison is a mix of deadly cobra and pufferfish venoms. Ketz reveals the mixture is a legendary dragon-slaying poison. Yujirin is horrified, learning it can kill every creature in the forest. Yujirin desperately begs Ketz for his life, offering him money. Ketz viciously kicks him, telling the pig to be quiet. Yujirin weeps pathetically as Tenma and the bear man look on. Ranga struggles, realizing this is far worse than he imagined. Ranga collapses, covering his mouth as the poison overwhelms him. He loses consciousness, his hand falling limp to the ground. He orders his men to retreat and formulate a new plan. Ranga sees a sword land nearby, shouting for Tenma to escape. Ranga screams in agony as the poison's hallucinations take hold. Tenma suddenly appears behind the mercenary, holding a small vial. He leaps over his surprised opponents with incredible agility. Ketz scoffs, believing that detoxification here is utterly impossible. He sneers viciously, telling Tenma to die by their poison. Tenma brings the open vial of deadly poison to his lips. He inhales deeply, absorbing the cloud of potent poison. He clutches his throat as the mercenaries wonder if he's gone mad. Tenma's eye snaps open, his gaze sharp and intensely focused. His body becomes a silhouette as his internal systems analyze the toxin. System messages flash across his vision, confirming detoxification is underway. A status bar shows his body rapidly neutralizing the poison. The mercenary captain, Ketz, lies paralyzed on the forest floor. His leg is useless, the numbing poison spreading through his veins. He looks up in terror at the approaching figure of Tenma. Tenma closes the distance with impossible, silent speed. Ketz coughs, realizing the true danger he is in. Tenma, sweating from the earlier fight, admits he thought he was going to die. The remaining gas-masked mercenaries flee in a blind panic. They disappear into the night, leaving their comrades and captain behind. From the shadows, Ranga watches them go, a wolf at his side. He mutters Tenma's name, his face etched with deep concern. A cool wind blows across the now silent, empty clearing. Tenma stands over the blonde mercenary who betrayed her captain. Elsewhere, Ranga and Misha cry out his name in alarm. A bright flash of light signals a new conflict. The ground erupts from a powerful impact. The blonde mercenary cries out as she is thrown to the ground. From a distance, Ketz curses her as a fool. His eyes are filled with cold, calculating rage. He calls her a hindrance to his escape. He spots a nearby river, his only way out. Suddenly, the blonde mercenary attacks him from behind. Her poisoned dagger sinks deep into his leg. He collapses as she informs him of his fate. She tells him it's a shame, but necessary for her survival. He realizes it's poison. She says he will be the bait. She leaps away into the trees, leaving him for dead. Ketz is horrified that he has been made a decoy. He seethes, cursing the brat who orchestrated all of this. He struggles to his knees, using his sword for support. He looks up to see Tenma's dark silhouette watching him. Ketz's heart pounds in his chest, sweat beading on his brow. Tenma moves like a phantom, a blur across the clearing. He leaps towards the mercenary, his attack swift and silent. His hand is filled with small, sharp stones, ready to be thrown. He unleashes a volley of projectiles with deadly precision. Ketz's sword shatters under the impossible percussive assault. Their daggers lock in a desperate, final struggle for dominance. Ketz grunts, shocked by the boy's overwhelming strength. Tenma catches the blade, telling Ketz that he is strong. He says he was likely born stronger than everyone around him, but he has only ever used that strength to crush others. With a final twist, Tenma wrenches the dagger from his grip. Defeated, Ketz sneers and tells him to just kill him. Tenma looks down, his expression cold and unreadable. He says that he will not be the one to take his life. He tells him to live with the feelings of those he trampled. The sun crests the mountains, bringing a new day. The blonde mercenary runs desperately through an open field. She finally collapses, gasping for breath against a tree. Looking back at the empty path, she feels a wave of relief. A triumphant smile spreads across her face. She believes she escaped. Her eye widens in sudden, dawning horror. On a distant hill, a silhouetted figure is waiting for her. It is Tenma, his cloak billowing in the morning breeze. The mercenary's body freezes, a silent gasp caught in her throat. Her face contorts in terror as she lets out a final scream. In the dimension room, Gale wonders where Tenma could be. The AI muses that Tenma's abilities are on another level. As a kettle whistles, Gale has a sudden thought. The AI calmly pours itself a cup of fresh coffee. He is surely busy helping the villagers, a troublesome little brother. Gale's eye narrows, its focus shifting to the tasks ahead. It's time to organize the next phase of the grand plan. They must deal with Rhonda, the wolves, and the village's crises. Gale glances fondly at the wooden figurines Tenma carved. He'd be bored otherwise. This is a troublesome but necessary path. In the afterlife, Anna rushes to speak with Section Chief Hagen. She argues that Tenma should use his immense power more directly. Hagen explains that while Tenma is invincible, his friends are not. Anna worries what might happen if his friends are taken hostage. Hagen is confident Tenma has the strength to protect them, but he asks what if random, innocent people are targeted instead. Anna is horrified by the thought of such a cruel tactic. She recalls the face of the ruthless, pig-headed executive, Hayes. Hagen explains there is a profound reason for Tenma's caution, but he admits that he is just as worried about him. The scene transitions to a dark forest at night. Tenma is huddled by a stream, completely exhausted from the fight. He splashes cool, clear water onto his weary face. He admits to himself that he truly thought he was going to die. He leans on a stick, worrying that Gale will be angry with him. He forces himself to his feet, his body aching. He stands alone under a vast and brilliant starry sky. He recalls the warning Sasha had given him before he left. The village was seized by Udrin's thugs from Rhonda. He realizes the takeover was planned. He must go to Rhonda. A pair of glowing eyes watches him from the dark undergrowth. Something small lunges from the bushes, catching him by surprise. He feels a sudden, sharp, and annoying pain in his leg. A tiny white pup is gnawing fiercely on his boot. Tenma's eyes widen in sheer, utter disbelief. The pup growls, its tiny fangs digging into the leather. An unexpected assassin has appeared under the starry night. The moon shines down on the bizarre, silent confrontation. Tenma tries to walk, but the little creature hangs on. He is completely bewildered by his tiny, persistent attacker. He wonders what this ferocious little pup even is. He scolds the pup, telling it to let go and stop biting. He gives his leg a shake to dislodge the creature. The pup suddenly lets go, collapsing unconscious at his feet. Tenma rushes to a collapsed pup, asking worriedly if it is all right. The weak pup suddenly lunges, its tiny fangs sinking into his leg. Holding the unconscious pup, he decides to consult with Gale inside the room. He reaches for the handle, ready to enter his familiar pocket dimension. An invisible force suddenly stops him, preventing him from crossing the threshold. A crackle of energy throws him back, yelping in surprise and pain. He stares at the portal, his face a mask of shock and confusion. Gale peeks out asking what's wrong. Tenma explains he can't enter. The pup is the cause, Gale explains, as only Tenma can enter. He realizes the pup is poisoned and must be cured immediately with appraisal. The antidote works, and the small pup slowly begins to stir and awaken. Now fully recovered, the pup looks around while Tenma smiles in relief. He confirms the poison is gone, realizing it's a young silver wolf. A system message appears, initiating a contract. He wonders what it means. He tells a surprised Gale that the pup is becoming his familiar. The happy pup agrees, and Gale decides that this outcome is fine. He wonders how the pup got poisoned, recalling it bit him, then collapsed. Gale reacts with shock, questioning how a deadly poison was involved. As Gale panics, Tenma calmly explains he already detoxified the potent poison. The AI is still reeling from the shocking revelation of the danger. Gale asks for an update, and Tenma admits things took some time. Gale is shocked to hear that Eugerin used others to attack Tenma. He fought them off, but Eugerin has betrayed his father and village. Petting the pup, he says the merchant and monster problems are now solved. Gale lists the remaining problems: shortages of water, wood, and merchants. But the AI knows that the most troublesome problem still remains unsolved. Eugerin is conspiring with shadowy figures from the nearby town of Ronda. Tenma agrees they must go to Ronda to stop the true mastermind. The small pup, now safe and sound, sleeps peacefully in his arms. Outside the safety of the room, a steady rain begins to fall. Tenma stands at the portal's edge, holding the sleeping pup in the rain. Realizing the time, he knows he must go to Zlatan and Misha. He looks down at the peacefully sleeping pup, his expression softening. He wonders what he should do with the small, vulnerable creature now. Gale hums in thought, worried about the pup's delicate condition. The AI realizes the weak pup can't be left alone inside the room. A shadow crosses Gale's face as it comes to a difficult decision. Tenma senses a change, asking what is wrong as Gale transforms. Gale's expression hardens, stating there is another way to handle this. But before they proceed, there is something important he must confirm first. Tenma is taken aback, surprised by his companion's suddenly serious tone. Outside, thunder rumbles as the storm intensifies over the dark mountains. The rain continues to pour down on the vast, unforgiving landscape. Misha stands in the downpour, her expression clouded with worry for Tenma. She quietly wonders aloud if Tenma is all right out there all alone. Zlatan calmly reassures her, certain that Tenma will be perfectly fine. He knows from their journey together that Tenma possesses unfathomable strength. Misha listens to his words, though her worried expression does not change. But Zlatan says Tenma's true greatness lies elsewhere, not in power. She looks at him, surprised and confused by his cryptic statement. He is more thoughtful than others, Zlatan says. Gale takes the credit. He always considers the feelings and positions of everyone, even his enemies. Misha's face softens into a relieved and slightly flustered smile. He reiterates that Tenma's greatness is not found in his raw power. It is found within his kind and considerate character, Zlatan explains. He places a reassuring hand on her, telling her to be at ease. She looks down, her cheeks warm, feeling touched by his deep insight. She thinks to herself that if Zlatan says so, it must be true. She approaches Zlatan, saying there is something she needs to discuss. Zlatan turns to her, correctly guessing that she wants to talk about Tenma. Her expression is serious, her wide eyes filled with an unspoken question. Her boots are planted firmly on the wet ground as she speaks. She simply says his name, the question hanging heavy in the air. Tenma is shocked as Misha's voice asks what he is to her. He thinks Gale must be angry and that he must protect him. He tells Gale someone asked about their relationship, wanting to know his thoughts. He pauses, genuinely considering his relationship with his AI companion, Gale. He begins by stating that Gale is his navigator and his partner. Gale listens patiently, asking him to explain what he truly means. He's like an uncle who got angry once, almost like family. Gale gets flustered, insisting he is not some kind of father figure. Tenma considers this, thinking to himself that father isn't quite right. He suggests master, but Gale impatiently asks for another option. He fondly recalls their 15 years of training together, a shared hardship. Gale dismisses the memory, but Tenma just laughs it off happily. He realizes he has a friend with whom he can finally joke around. Gale suddenly understands where Tenma's thoughts are finally leading him. With a bright smile, Tenma declares that Gale is his dear brother. A heavenly vision appears, depicting Gale as a divine, angelic being. Gale accepts this, declaring himself the older brother, and Tenma agrees. With that settled, he asks what they should do about the pup. Gale suggests using the dimension area, which confuses Tenma at first. Unlike the room, the dimension area skill can be activated from anywhere. Understanding now, he looks down at the sleeping pup in his arms. He reassures the pup he will find a safe place for it now. Tenma tells his brother Gale to hurry up, and the AI agrees. He chooses a location from a map, a grassy plain with a cave. His finger taps the screen, completing the replication of the chosen area. He strikes a pose, confidently activating his dimension area skill. A heavy, metallic vault door materializes out of thin air before him. He notes the door is different from the one for his usual room. The door opens to a sunny beach, a perfect, peaceful sanctuary. He sets the pup down, and it leaps excitedly into its new home. The happy pup runs and plays, yipping with pure, unrestrained joy. It turns and joyfully bounds back towards Tenma, its tail wagging furiously. He decides to name the silver wolf Shiru, and it happily agrees. He offers the hungry pup a piece of dried meat to eat. Shiru lies in the grass, happily gnawing on the delicious treat. Tenma watches, his face frozen, completely overwhelmed by the pup's cuteness. He clutches his blushing face, whispering that the pup is dangerously cute. Tenma, accompanied by his wolf pup, decides it's time to check his status. He smiles in relief, seeing Shiru is now officially registered as his familiar. Shiru gives a gentle tug on his trousers, asking a silent question. The pup looks up with pleading eyes, begging for another round of pets. Tenma is completely overwhelmed by the sheer force of his companion's cuteness. The feeling crashes over him with an audible, heart-melting thud. He returns to the safety and comfort of his personal dimension room. He sincerely tells Gale that he was able to protect everyone, thanks to him. Gale soberly reminds him that the truly difficult part is just beginning now. Tenma acknowledges that everything he has accomplished is thanks to Gale's guidance. Gale is visibly flustered by the heartfelt praise, cute flowers popping around him. Tenma earnestly asks his brother to lend him his strength for the coming trials. A blushing Gale agrees, saying he can't refuse a request from Tenma. Gale asks if he brought that, and Tenma confirms he would never forget it. With his resolve set, Tenma steps out of the portal, ready for action. The camera pans over the small pioneer village, a lone outpost in the wild. Misha and Zlatan are waiting in the rain near the town of Ronda. They stand guard over the bound forms of Udrin and a defeated mercenary. Tenma approaches them, his cloak whipping in the wind, his face set. Misha's face flushes as she sees him, quietly speaking his name. She clenches a fist over her chest, her heart pounding with a strange emotion. She asks to join him on his journey, promising that she can be useful. In a flustered rush, she blurts out that she will do anything for him. Tenma is taken aback, repeating her shocking offer. She would do anything? Misha recoils, instantly regretting her poorly chosen words. Her mind begins to spin with hazy, sparkling thoughts of what anything implies. The fog of her imagination begins to coalesce into a vivid fantasy. She pictures a romantic scene where she is being pampered and adored by him. Her brain overloads, screaming at herself internally to stop the embarrassing thoughts. Tenma takes a small step back, startled by her sudden, intense reaction. Zlatan sighs, assuring the others that Tenma isn't the type to take advantage. He muses that even without training, things tend to work out for them. Misha quietly watches the two captives, her mind still reeling from her fantasy. Suddenly, The captured mercenary lets out a choked gasp and begins to convulse. Tenma returns at that exact moment, announcing his arrival from the bushes. He stops short, startled by the sudden and violent turn of events. Zlatan expresses his relief, then asks what happened to the other adventurers. Tenma gravely informs him that they will not be returning to the village. Zlatan processes the grim news with a quiet, understanding nod. Tenma declares his plan to go to Rhonda and crush the mastermind. Zlatan listens intently, his expression serious as he considers the bold move. He disagrees, arguing that they should return to the village first. He is worried about Tenma's injuries and the unknown nature of their true enemy. Tenma looks down, a bead of sweat on his face, feeling the strain. He stands silently before a worried Zlatan and an anxious Misha. He recalls Gale's plan. A swift counterattack is their best strategic option. Misha steps forward, her resolve renewed and her expression determined. She begs him again, promising she'll do anything if he takes her along. To her absolute shock, Tenma smiles and agrees to her request. He says she can join him after this current business is settled. She argues that since it's her village's problem, she should go now. Tenma considers her words and concedes that she has a valid point. Their conversation is cut short as the mercenary convulses violently on the ground. Zlatan watches in shock, alarmed by the man's worsening condition. The entire group rushes to the side of the two fallen men. Tenma tells a frantic Zlatan to calm down as he activates his appraisal skill. He is shocked to discover a delayed action virulent poison is the cause. He places a hand on the man, neutralizing the toxin and saving his life. Zlatan thanks him as Tenma gently covers the recovering man with his cloak. Later, a crude grave marks the final resting place of the other mercenary. The three companions stand before the grave, paying their respects. Tenma recognizes this outcome as one of Gale's predicted scenarios, Pattern G. He cannot believe their enemy would be so ruthless as to plan this. He clasps his hands in prayer, his expression grim and heavy. He understands the poison was a fail-safe, meant to kill him if he failed. He stands abruptly, his decision made in the face of such cruelty. He announces that the situation has changed, and they must return to the village. Zlatan and Misha exchange a confused glance, unsure of his reasoning. 2 weeks later, the village gate stands peacefully in the afternoon sun. Tenma gives his happy wolf pup, Shiru, a good scratch under the chin. He sits with Shiru by the barn, telling the pup how cute he is. Shiru responds with an explosion of pure, unadulterated joy. The pup rolls onto its back, completely surrendering to the affection. Shiru throws its paws in the air again with another happy yip. Tenma is struck by a bolt of pure, overwhelming cuteness. His senses suddenly flare with an alert. An armed group is approaching. From the watchtower, he scans the horizon, sensing their familiar presence. Through his binoculars, he sees Ranga and the villagers returning, waving cheerfully. A guard tells Tenma his shift is over, and he calmly acknowledges it. Ranga and Tenma walk through the village, Shiru happily trotting beside them. Misha confirms with Ranga that all the traps have been set perfectly. Shiru proudly shows off the new, well-crafted collar around his neck. Ranga jokes that it suits him, while Tenma thanks him for the gift. Ranga smirks, saying it's only fitting for the familiar of his disciple, Tenma. Tenma's expression turns serious as he thinks of the failed village takeover. He worries about the mastermind behind Yudrin, hoping things will be all right. He smiles softly, thinking that would be a very good thing indeed. Night falls over the village, stars glittering above a quiet, solitary barn. Inside, Tenma studies a map while Shiru playfully chases baby goats. He diligently takes notes in his journal, the scratching of his quill audible. Zlatan appears in the doorway, calling out to him. Tenma offers him a bottle of wine, thanking him for his help. Zlatan points to the notebook, asking about the strange writing inside. Tenma explains it's Japanese, a language from his world that no one here can read. He reports that Eugerin has finally started talking about his mastermind contact. Eugerin is shown drunkenly demanding more wine in exchange for information. Timma notes that Eugerin's behavior is, as always, completely predictable. He discusses strategy with Zlatan, explaining their enemy is unaware Eugerin is alive. Zlatan takes a sip of wine, listening intently to Timma's plan. Timma recalls Ranga's words, saying that he hadn't given up on the village. Zlatan explains the mastermind had the 6 adventurers drink a prepared poison beforehand. He describes the unseen villain as both greedy and meticulously, wickedly clever. The hulking beastkin continues to whittle wood as he listens to Timma's assessment. Timma, holding a wooden plate, states he now understands their enemy's true nature. Zlatan looks up, a bead of sweat tracing a line down his temple. He realizes with a heavy heart that the village itself will now be targeted. In the corporate afterlife, a pile of strange, symbiotic puppies snoozes peacefully. One of the black, gooey creatures snores softly on Anna's cluttered desk. The overworked case manager sighs, feeling as though her work will never end. A digital clock on her screen clicks over to midnight, signaling another day. She slumps in her chair, utterly exhausted by the unending stream of tasks. She complains that recent reincarnators always have such detailed requests for cheat abilities. She chugs another energy drink, desperately fighting off the encroaching sleep. Leaning back, she admits that Timma was at least straightforward despite being weird. A flicker of concern crosses her face as she considers his current situation. She finds it unacceptable for him to just quietly settle down where he was sent. She scans other candidates' absurd profiles, wondering what she would wish for herself. A chaotic vision flashes in her mind of their wishes, causing utter pandemonium. This isn't an invincible status. She realizes with horror, it is a complete mess. In a lavish tent, Shamrock observes 6 defeated adventurers, noting their total failure. A pleasant, chilling smile plays on his lips as he surveys the carnage. His subordinate, Rock, stands by his side, a silent and loyal observer. The man who hired the adventurers looks on, his face pale with disbelief. A blonde woman, one of Shamrock's associates, watches silently from her seat. Shamrock sips his wine, casually trying to recall the foolish son's name, Eugerin. The nervous contact addresses him with fear and reverence as Master Shamrock. He finally asks why Shamrock is so obsessed with such a tiny, remote village. Shamrock beams with delight, calling it the best question he's heard all day. He raises a single finger, about to explain his grand, terrifying vision. He reveals that countless pioneer villages just like this one exist across the land. If these villages could grow like the town of Ronda, the profits would be enormous. He sees this village as a model, a test case for his ambitious plans. Rock affirms his understanding of Master Shamrock's brilliant, ruthless strategy. Shamrock's expression darkens, a thoughtful, calculating glint in his eye. He muses that a skilled person capable of such feats shouldn't be here. He wonders if there is some unknown, hidden factor at play in the village. His subordinate stands at the ready, pouring another glass of fine red wine. Rock watches his master, sensing the depth of his unsettling thoughts. His eyes widen in surprise at the sudden, chilling shift in his master's demeanor. Shamrock's face lights up with a sparkling, sociopathic glee at this new challenge. In the Dimension Room, Gale finds the situation to be quite fascinating. The small AI crosses its flippers, its expression serious and deeply intrigued. It turns to Timma and asks him what he plans to do about it. Timma admits that Gale might be against it, but he cannot simply stand by. He declares his desire to protect the villagers who were kind to his brother. Overcome with emotion, Timma scoops up the AI in a grateful, heartfelt hug. Gale explains that its plan may seem reckless, but Timma must trust it completely. With firm resolve, Timma agrees and asks what his first move should be.